Yeah.
And alternate Commissioner Onofrio. I think he's on the.
I'm here. Sorry, my laptop keeps freezing up, so I might jump on from my phone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Our administrator, Ms. Castro, our assistant administrator.
Present.
Attorney Francis Udell, our corporation counsel. Mr. Panico, our consultant. Okay. Ms. Vernassos, our recording secretary.
Present.
Mr. Arbino, our stenographer.
Present.
Thank you. Couple points before we continue with this evening's agenda. Mr. Rossetti will act as the Zoom meeting host. While commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting, the chair asks that you please identify yourself and wait to be recognized before speaking to make sure we're not all speaking over each other and to make sure our recording secretary is clear as to who is speaking. Those present in the auditorium who wish to speak during the public portion of each public hearing should write their name and address on the sign-up sheet on the table. Those participating either via Zoom or by phone will be asked at the appropriate time to use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9. The speaking order is elected officials of the city of Shelton, those in the auditorium, Zoom participants, and phone participants. This evening, we have the continuation of 2 public hearings and the initiation of 2 others. And I'd like to share the protocol for each. Mr. Rossetti will indicate if any written comments were received from the members of the public no later than 24 hours before the start of this evening's meeting. If written comments were received, they will be read into the record. The applicant and or its associates will make their presentation. Commission can ask questions during the presentation or at its conclusion. The applicant and or associates can answer commission questions at the time they are presented or at the conclusion of the presentation. Then we will have comments from the public. The applicant's attorney and or associates will be given the opportunity to address any comments or questions from the public after the last person from the public has been given the opportunity to speak. The commission feels further information is needed from the applicant. The chair will ask for a motion to continue the public hearing. If a public hearing remains open, the commission is not allowed to make any public comment, discuss any part of the applicant's and or associate's presentation, or receive any information from anyone. The commission, applicant and or associates have answered all questions, have addressed all concerns from the commission and or public. The chair will ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Staff will then schedule a discussion about the application at an upcoming commission meeting, during which time the commission will be asked by the chair on how it wants to proceed. And these are the guidelines for the public who choose to speak at the point in the public hearing when I call for public comment. After you're acknowledged, please state and spell your name and state your address to assist the recording secretary and stenographer when they are doing the minutes and the transcript of the public hearing. Please present your comments and questions to the commission, not to the applicant and or his associates. If the public wishes to comment during a public hearing continuation, the comments are restricted to new material submitted by the applicant. Comments from the public should address specific criteria of the zoning regs, the merits of the application, and be new information, not a repeat of comments previously presented. Members of the public are asked to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. Disruptive may be removed from verbally participating. The first agenda item is continuation of the public hearing for application 22-26 Dominic Thomas for Agman Ismaili and Shizbara Ismaili at 2 Mohawk Drive, Assessors Map 12, Lot 4, on 0.76 acres for Planned Development District, PDD, to include 40 apartments with on-site parking under Connecticut General Statute 8-30G. And this is a continuation. It was noticed in the paper. And Commissioner Amato, would you read that portion of the legal notice?
Sorry. Continuation of public hearing for application 22-26, Dominic Thomas for Agman Ismaili and Shirtha Ismaili at 2 Mohawk Drive, Assessors Map 12, Lot 4 on 0.76 acres in a CA2 and R3 zone for Planned Development District and site plan approval to have 40 residential rental units in a single building with on-site parking. PDD is proposed as an affordable housing set-aside development in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 830G and will provide at least 30% deed-restricted affordable units.
Thank you. Mr. Rossetti, is Mr. Panico with us?
Not yet.
Okay, just give me the heads up so I can acknowledge that he's here.
Yep.
Mr. Rossetti, any comments from the public that were submitted directly since the opening of the public hearing on February 22nd that we need to acknowledge for the record?
There are some already on Google Drive, but nothing else particular. We did receive a report today from the fire marshal's office,
Okay,
but that will be available online soon.
okay, did the city engineer submit anything?
Nothing additional.
Okay, was he asked to comment?
Yes.
Okay. All right, the public hearing for this application opened on February 22nd, during which time we heard from the applicant's attorney, civil engineer, traffic engineer, and 27 members of the public present in the auditorium. Due to time constraints, we were not able to hear from members of the public who are participating via Zoom or by phone. So we're going to continue the public portion of the public hearing with those participating remotely who want to address the commission. If there is anyone participating remotely who would like to comment on this application, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9 on your phone. And Mr. Rossetti will check to see if anyone. So if there's anybody, again, participating remotely and you would like to comment on this application, this is when you need to use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9.
There is a Tom on the screen.
Okay, Mr. Panico is here with us, so Mr.
Yes.
Panico. You,
Yes, I'm here. Finally.
you have something? Okay. There is someone online, please identify yourself and proceed.
Tom Harbinson, 15 Soundcrest Drive. Am I next, Chair Harger?
First member of the public to speak, this is on, because members of the public participating remotely were not given the opportunity to speak at the opening of the public hearing at the intermediate school. So we're catching up on that.
Very good. Yeah, I'd like to speak on the topic of Mohawk Drive. Again, Tom Harbinson, 15 Soundcrest Drive. Thank you for the opportunity. I did watch the public hearing portion, and I had a couple questions that resulted from that. One was the underground galleries. It's mentioned that it's 152 feet of 2,400 cubic feet of water underneath the parking in the parking facility area underneath the building. Mr. Panico asked about how that would be maintained. They said it would be with a vacuum truck. I was wondering, is the height in that parking facility adequate for a commercial vehicle of a vacuum truck style to gain access? And then also, how is such maintenance guaranteed or insured or reported to the city so that such maintenance is known to have occurred that empties into the city's infrastructure? So that's one element. Another question I had was regarding the architectural drawings. During the public hearing, there was reference by architect Geddes to some architectural drawings. Those were not available at the time of the public hearing, and Chair Harger referred to that. But I'm going to refer to the plans that were uploaded on March 10th, which are dated drawing. They were dated 2020 December 16th and revised 2023 March 13th, as shown in its title block. So that's what I'm referring to in drawing A6. During the presentation, architect Geddes said that basically the building was designed to sort of blend in and be a transitional zone. and that you have a full 5 stories on the River Road side, which is really a inaccuracy in my impression of it. In looking at the north elevation of drawing A6, it shows a height above grade of just under 70 feet, which is a lot more than 5 stories. I know there may be a nuance between what is a story, what is a floor, overall height, and I'm no architect, but I look at a lot of engineered drawings from the Port Authority and commercial buildings in New York City. And if you're going to refer to a north elevation on a drawing, you don't refer to the next elevation as a right elevation. You tell it's a north, east, south, and west, and there should be a compass on at least the A1 plan version of those architecturals. So there's some deficiencies in being able to refer to things accurately. Also, during that presentation by the architect, it was stated that the building is designed to mimic residential construction, so its tones are muted and you have shake siding. Certainly residential construction on Canal Street is residential construction, but that's different than residential construction in Huntington Center or Pine Rock Park. So I think an urban style residential construction scale works at the former Esther's Hacienda site, where the back of the parcel or lot has been quarried out and there's no disruption to the adjacent property owner with a difference of scale of building. And the same thing could be said for the Crazy Donut site further up River Road, where the site was quarried out. And even though that commercial building abuts a residential property, it's not as much impacting because of the change of grade. This location on Mohawk Drive, to have a 70-foot tall building right up against residential at the same grade level is very impactful and is not in harmony with the style of that neighborhood. That said, Attorney Thomas did say at about the 52-minute mark that character of a neighborhood cannot be the basis for denial of an application with 830G. So I guess all I'm saying with this previous paragraph is that it's disappointing. In terms of the use of a PDD, our regulations 34.1 say that a PD district can only be established within a special development area. And in the definition of that, it did include the delineated coastal area in the vicinity of Pine Rock Park. But this specific area is not so delineated. So I'm wondering, how is that reconciled that a PDD application is being applied for in an area that is not predefined as a special development area? I recognize that there's a change in zone between commercial and residential here, and it would be maybe an appropriate tool to use, but our documents, drawings, plans do not show that tool to be allowed at this location. I may be mistaken in what I'm reading, or maybe reading old revised drawings, but I'm just curious about that aspect. The next element I had was regarding traffic. The traffic engineer said that the intersection of Long Hill Avenue and River Road, Route 110, is already at present a grade F service level. And he referenced a state project taking about 4 to 5 years to get done. And I just wanted clarification, is a 4 to 5 year timeline for the state to do something equivalent to the timeline it would take a private party? If we said to a private party, you need to get this done in order to open or have a certificate of occupancy, would they have to interact with the state to do the construction to be 4 to 5 years? Or is it just the approval engineer review process the state takes at the DOT level to take 4 to 5 years? I certainly don't want to see an application, if it were to be approved, go through the Fountain Square level of timeline of years and years of no progress due to excuses. The other reference, I'll say that it was mentioned by Attorney Thomas that this is a transitional zone, and it certainly is, but the blending of character referencing Petromont Lane, it's really not a comparable location in my opinion. In terms of the sewer, I didn't hear anything about the review from the city of Stratford as to the capacities of the sewer system to take on this added effluent. In regards to the parking ratios, It was mentioned that the parking ratios can be mitigated if public transport is available in the area. Certainly it exists in an area like Canal Street, but I don't know that it exists on this particular location. And if it does, where are the pedestrian elements for somebody to gain access to a bus stop on Route 110? Or for that matter, if they wanted to just go to Cumberland Farms to pick up a gallon of milk, how would a pedestrian get there? The drawing showed no sidewalk elements, and I think that is a danger. As has been proven by parents dropping children off at the sports center down the road, and then them crossing Route 110 to go get something at Crazy Donut. I have photos, evidence of that. There are deficiencies with pedestrian movement in this area and in this application. And then one next item regarding fire service. I just heard it mentioned that the fire marshal has given some input. His prior letter said that he couldn't read the drawings, which is surprising to me. I think City Hall has the ability to do a large format printer. If I can read the drawings online, anybody should be able to. But I do have a question of how the rear of the property or the south elevation would be addressed during a fire event. It seems that there's no ability for apparatus to get around the building. So if there was a fire on the south elevation, would a fire truck have to go in the parking area underneath the building to access that side? I'm just a little confused on how that would be addressed in such an event. And then with the construction of homes in the Pine Rock Park area, we know those all began as campsites. And there may be some blasting required for this location. And we know that there has been migration of methane gas across the street to the Cumberland Farms area in years past. Certainly the methane volume has decreased over the years, but I would suggest that in any blasting analysis of foundations in the area that be perhaps expanded in its radius so that the potential for migration of methane through fractured openings and the foundations of the homes give a little bit more radius as to the analysis before blasting occurs.
Mr. Harbison, do you have much more?
No, that is all. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Rossetti, anybody else participating remotely?
Right now, that's what my.
Okay, so neither Zoom or phone.
No.
Okay, very good. So, Attorney Thomas, before going over the new material submitted by the applicant since the February 22nd public hearing, would you like to respond to the comments made by Mr. Harbison this evening, or to the people who appeared in person on February 22nd?
Well, I think a lot of, again, Attorney Dominic Thomas, Cohen and Thomas, 315 Main Street, Derby, Connecticut, representing the applicant. I think a lot of what we will be presenting addresses a lot of the concerns. I will note that Manny Silva and John Geddes are still as attendees. They should be admitted as participants. As panelists, I'm sorry to be able to address it. We will, with some of the submissions that we have made, and the individuals here can respond to some of the questions with respect to the, I was going to note that we haven't received any report from the city engineer, but I see that confirmed. And if there was a report for the fire marshal, it wasn't delivered to us. We have submitted 2 updated reports, letter reports that will be addressed by Dave Sullivan. We have submitted revised site plans to correct some of the inconsistencies that were pointed out, and revised architectural plans. You also received a letter from Deep representative who indicated they addressed the the issue of methane upon, I assume, request of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and indicated that there are no blasting protocols that they have for the methane, but most certainly, if there is any blasting, and I want to understand this, and I want everybody to understand this clearly, and Manny Silva will address it. There is the possibility of blasting. There is also the possibility that any rock in the area can be removed for the foundation or any utilities through mechanical means. So that it was just a response, to be honest, with the commission. With respect to the comments about traffic, we will have an update. We just addressed them. And again, I would point out that I provided and uploaded 2 cases, Superior Court case and Appellate Court case, that deal with the issue of the traffic engineer as opposed to the comments and observations, which are important to be received by the commission, but it does defer to the fact that a certified traffic engineer, their reports are what the commission should be relying on, and there may be more than one, but we have presented one. With respect to the issue and the claims of that, and we will address also the parking and provide evidence as to what sustainable parking is. Certainly, my client would be glad to pay for it if the city couldn't afford it. No parking signs all along their property line and property fronts indicate no parking. Towing, cars will be towed. And we have no problem with that, even if they believe there's a real, again, you've heard me and I'll say it again, this issue of guest parking and visitor parking is something that this commission desires. It is nothing in which there's any empirical evidence to support it, and you will hear that tonight. Very often in these situations, again, regardless of the issue, the numerous articles that have been written about the reduced number of cars or anything, you have actually no evidence, any evidence, especially in the out of the downtown area where there is any issue with respect to parking. But we'd be glad to agree to put up no parking signs. I will just tell you this. I had a similar issue with a similar business in a different town, and not a similar business, with a parking issue in a different town with parking in a residential neighborhood. The client supported and said, fine, you want to put up no parking signs? We'll put up signs inside to say, if you park on these streets, you will be towed. And it happened. And I have to say, the vast majority of the clientele all obeyed the rules. The problem is the visitors to the people who lived on those streets got their cars towed. But we would be glad to do that. So with that, and again, reviewing what we uploaded early in March. We uploaded a letter addressing the concerns expressed about traffic accidents from SLR, which Dave Sullivan will address. A letter addressing parking, and if some of you may remember, very often there was a tremendously detailed parking study done by Barkin and Mess, which eventually became part of Malone and McBroom, which became part of SLR, in which Dave Sullivan was the primary researcher. And what he did, as you see in the letter, I'm sure you've reviewed it, was to take that study and then take other information that he will describe and explain it to you. We also have to address Mr. Harbinson's architectural concerns. I don't know if Mr. Geddes heard all of them, but he's a participant now and he can address that. And Manny Silva's on, and he can address the issues and the issue concerning the drainage and everything. So with that, I think the first person I would want to call on is Dave Sullivan to address the letters that he uploaded.
Thanks, Dominic. Again, I'm David Sullivan. I'm with SLR. Our offices are in New Haven, Connecticut. We did submit.
Excuse me, I can screen share the letters. I have them ready. Am I able to screen share? Okay.
So I'll go through them while Dominic's doing his IT. But they're fairly simple letters. The first one I'll go through is the parking assessment. The first thing we did was look at your zoning regulations and make an assessment of what we thought about those compared to what we know to be industry data and data in our files. And using your zoning regulations, a demand or a number of 83 parking spaces would be required, which we feel are those regulations are high compared to not only what we know from data we have and the industry data. We also know that over parking is a trend that's on the decline industry wide. So then we looked at what the industry data would tell us in terms of parking requirements. We looked at the ITE data, and they look at it in terms of units, and then they break it down further by number of bedrooms. And then we looked at the SLR data, and all of this data is provided in the appendix of this letter. And what we see is, depending on which determination you use, you come up with a parking demand of between 51 and 56 parking spaces. 61 spaces are being provided. So based on those facts alone, we think it's adequately parked for this type of housing. We also looked at what it's not called the max, it's called the 85th percentile, which is the reasonable max from ITE and the Urban Land Institute. And they would say the maximum that this type of development would have would be between 59 and 63, or an average of 61 spaces of these two 85th percentiles. And again, that falls right on the number that we do have. So in summary, we think that this type of housing will generate somewhere between 51 and 56 parking spaces, and there is enough parking provided so that even if it were to be on the higher side of the parking statistics, it would still be adequate. So that was the parking letter. The second letter that we provided was an expansion of the crash history analysis. Typically, we look at 3 years worth of data, and it gives us a pretty good idea. It was suggested maybe we look at a longer period, in which we did. I think that makes sense in hindsight with the pandemic, where some of the travel patterns have changed and driving habits have changed. So we looked at 10 years, and that's summarized in table 1 in this letter. So in the 10 years total, there were a total of 31 accidents between the intersection of Long Hill Road and Mohawk Drive and the intersection of River Road and Long Hill Avenue. So a total of 31. The vast majority of those were property damage only, and the most typical or the most common accident type by a long shot of about half are angle accidents, which you would expect at an unsignalized intersection, which both of these are. Then we did take another look on the 10-year window at fatalities. I know there's been some fatalities on Long Hill Road, to see if any of them were related to this intersection. And I think I've reported on this before, but there were in fact 4 fatalities starting in 2013, 2016, 2018, 2020, and all of those fatalities took place not in the influence area of this intersection and further north along River Road, and each had its unique circumstances having to do with speeds and improper maneuvers and things like that. But again, we did look at that. So the 10-year accident data. Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry to interrupt, but did your list of seriously injured or fatality kinds of accidents include anything that had to do in November of 2022?
November of 2022. I don't have all of the raw information. None of the, that was not one of the fatalities that was listed in our 10-year. It's not, wouldn't be unusual if there was a fatality that late in 2022. It needs to be processed.
Yeah, it could be in the category of serious injury, but I believe you need to do a little bit of, maybe you could document that. We could, so, okay, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, because we have no serious injury report in that time frame and no fatality, but we will check. You said November?
Yeah, November 24th, 2022.
November 24th. Okay.
Okay, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so that was essentially the summary of what we found, that essentially there was not a difference in the patterns we found in 3 years, and our conclusions were essentially the same, that the accidents were as we would have expected for an intersection of these characteristics. And the last thing I'll touch, we don't have a letter for it, but I think it bears clarifying. When I talked about the traffic signal schedule, and there is no plan at this point for DOT to do anything here. My suggestion and recommendation is to start that process. And to start that process, you have to get the intersection on their radar, and whether it's through the RPA or directly with the traffic folks, the town would make an inquiry to get this on their radar. And the 4 to 5 years was a sample of a project we worked on in another municipality where we had similar conversations. And from the time we started the dialogue until essentially now, when this is past design and construction is imminent, has been about 5 years. So that was an example of where we went from requesting it, the DOT accepting it and going through their own independent analysis, to getting it on their design schedule, to get it designed, to get it bid, get a contractor selected, and get it on a construction cycle. So everything fell in place there, and that was about a 5-year process. So that's what I was talking about at the last hearing, not that, you know, there's going to be a signal here in 5 years. The first thing is the process has to be started, and our recommendation is to get that process started. And that's all I have.
Anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
Nope, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Thomas?
Yeah, the one
Well,
thing
let
I
me
would
just
like
ask-
to,
Could I just, I'm sorry, any commissioners or Mr. Panico have any questions for Mr. Sullivan?
Not at this time.
Okay, go ahead, Attorney Thomas.
yes, I would just like to emphasize that if you review Mr. Sullivan's report, it indicates that, and David, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it indicates that the intersection of Long Hill Avenue and River Road warrants a traffic light now, and that the addition of the small amount of traffic is not impactful on the intersection, which already has an issue, and especially with the other projects that are coming down the road would need that. So with that, I think I would go to John Geddes, if he's on, to discuss the architectural and respond to some of the architectural questions and the questions concerning fire access and everything, and what fire protection measures are already in such a building.
Commission, this is John Geddes, Geddes Associates, the architects for the project. Basically, unfortunately, I thought the hearing would start at 6:30 and I wasn't aware that it had started. So I came late, so I didn't hear some of the comments that had been voiced. But basically, the plans that are now, or the revised plans that are before you, reflect the comments that were made at the last hearing, which basically there was a number of items that had been, or a number of questions or concerns that have been raised, especially by the commission's consultant, Tony Panico. And what I did, I went back and I did revisions to the plans to accommodate those concerns and comments. There were a number of them that related to coordination of plans between Rostizo's site engineering and the architectural plans. There was concerns about the building lower level not having enough wall surfaces that address the open garage concept. So the revised plans address that. The building, I mean, this is the preliminary phase of it, but this building will have to be designed to accommodate the requirements for code compliance, not only for building, but also for the life safety, which is governed by the local fire marshal.
Mr. Guest,
Yes.
a minute. We have something up on the screen there. I don't think
Dominant screen.
It's dominant.
Mr. Attorney Thomas, could you check what's on your screen?
An index.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, all right. Let me just try to straighten it out and see what.
Okay, and while he's doing that, Mr. Getz, could you just confirm that the plans that are the updated ones, ones that were, I saw on the website today said revisions were 2/2/21 and 11/4/21? Is that the?
Well, I don't know if the revision dates are, that you're saying are appropriate, because this was revised a few weeks back, and I think it's the last revision date on the plan. But again, if you look at it on this particular elevation that's on the screen.
Yeah, I see that
There were-
the March 13th is indicated on A2.
Yes,
and but it wasn't on A1. That's where I was looking
Okay.
for.
I
Okay,
think it's because the revisions that were made only affected a certain number of plans. But
okay,
if you look at the one that's on the screen, there was, a feature introduced at the lower level. As you can see, there was stone veneer, and so that the facade, as pointed out by Mr. Panico, you didn't have all the, the columns showing, and the building wasn't open, so it was closed in. And I think that the next drawing, which is also another elevation drawing, which again is the facade that faces the east side, I believe. Again, some additional features were introduced, so that the building from the views of south and north, which are the major views that are exposed to the public, wind up with stone veneer on the surfaces of the garage areas. There are areas that are still remaining open, but that's again to allow for carbon monoxide to escape. The south elevation, obviously, that faces the rear parking area, and it's still open. As far as when we're dealing with the fire department, basically there is no requirement that the fire department access below the building. Basically, the fire department in emergency will park on the street and spread their hoses to deal with it. But this building will be fully sprinkled, fire protected, and unlike other, structures throughout the city, this one will have to comply with current code provisions and regulations. Basically, I don't know, again, if there were any other issues pertaining to the facades. The building was designed to conform with a residential style. Granted, the heights are obviously greater, than the average home in the area, but again, it's the design was to be residential in nature. So I don't know what other questions you may have, but if you do, I'd be more than glad to respond to them.
John, this is Dominic. I just want to also clarify that in the new plans, the number is corrected. I think at the prior meeting, it was stated that there was 24 and 24 2-bedroom and 16 1-bedroom, and the plans had showed 27 2-bedrooms and 13 1-bedrooms. And John, could you confirm that that's the correct number?
Yeah, the drawing that you have on screen with the number of units and type of units has been revised to reflect the program that that we're putting forth. And I believe the plan it shows the revision date as well.
Mhm. Any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Getz? Mr. Panico, any questions?
What was that? Well, what was the final discussion regarding the mix? Is it 24 and 16 or not?
It's 27 and 13.
It's 27.
First floor is 6 2-bedroom and 4 1-bedroom. The second floor is third floor and fourth floor are 7 2-bedroom and 3 1-bedroom.
Okay.
And John, was there one other issue that you addressed concerning the garbage pickup?
Yeah, there was another concern that Mr. Panico had raised, and that was the additional drive to access, and the access to the trash room has been changed to face the interior drive.
Is
And
that
we
the
also
corner where it's
included
going to
that
be
this-
now, John?
I'm sorry?
Is that the corner where it's going to be up in the front there?
Yeah, that's where there was a revision to the upper levels to make sure that the compactor, worked. And so, the upper floors also reflect, a minor modification so that the trash chute comes into that trash container area. Now, keep in mind that this is, in these type of buildings, the pickup that they now use is what they call rear end loaded instead of, front loaded. They're basically pickup trucks, and they come in and they roll out the compacted material, and it's picked up and taken away. It's, depending on the amount of trash that it's generated, many locations they'll do, have daily pickups, others, every 2 days. It all depends on what is generated. We've been using this type of program on most of the buildings. And again, it's basically to eliminate the outdoor trash container area that always seems to wind up a visual, hazard. And in this particular case, you don't have that. The room is set up so that, and basically the compactor is a small unit. And within that, there's 2 chutes. One is for recyclables, one is for household trash. As I said before, it's set up so that either a daily pickup or every 2 days or 3, depending on the the number of units and the type of trash that's generated.
Mr. Getz, could you confirm the only common space appears to be just on the first floor where the mailroom is? There is nothing set aside on the upper levels for the tenants? As we've seen in the proposals?
Yeah, there is no, other than what you see on the first level, there is no amenity space being provided.
Okay, and then how about on the outdoors?
There is no outdoor space either.
Okay,
Well, I mean,
Right.
there is an area, not to interrupt, but there is an area that can be created for outdoor space, and that's in the rear on the west side of the parking area.
That's all sloped.
Well, when we get in there to create the parking lot, that slope is not gonna exist.
Well, better go back and change your grading plan then.
Well, we'll take a look at that, but right as these plans indicate, there is no amenity space either indoors or outdoors. Right now it's being proposed.
okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Getz?
No, that's it.
Okay, any final questions from Commission or Mr. Panico?
Yes, I have a question for the applicant or Attorney Thomas. What are you, at what stage of approval are you looking at today? Are we talking about conceptual plans or are we talking about final plans?
We're talking about initial development concept plans.
Initial concept, okay. Because there's a lot of detail that I would normally look for that I don't find on these drawings.
Right.
Just as
That's
an
why
example,
we're
the
taking
drawing-
this as the,
well, nevertheless, the drawings have a variety of retaining walls in several parts of the site, but I have no idea what these retaining walls look like, how high they're going to be, what the elevations of the top are going to be. Is it going to have a parapet to control the edge of the parking? Is there room for the overhang of the car from the retaining wall? I can't figure any of that out. And you have a very tight parking lot on the, I guess it's the northerly side. I want to make sure it works. So I need more dimension.
again, that would be more for the next speaker would be Manny Silva.
Okay.
Well, can I just add this again, John Getz? I'll just add couple of comments. When I looked at because I don't think that Manny Silva shows it on his plan, but when I looked at the issues pertaining to the upper parking lot that Ms. Panic was referring to, I did introduce a stone wall, but it was not meant to be a retaining wall. It was meant to be a vehicle wall, meaning that, so that the headlights and would not face the residential area. And again, the retaining walls that I show on my site development plan are associated with cosmetic, including the one that I introduced.
Well, take a look at the grading plan, John, and tell me that's
Sorry?
true. Take a look at your grading plan and tell me that's true.
Well, all I can tell you is what I placed on my plan, and we'll have Manny Silva, respond to the grading end of it. If you look at the stone wall that I introduced, and again, these were features that I introduced after the last meeting. And if you look at the one that I introduced between the two driveways, that was to be able to raise the grade in front of the building to address your concerns about not having both columns and, large or a big area of exposed foundation wall. But again, these were two architectural features that I introduced. These would be picked up on the final concept or the final, design plans. But again, Manny Silva can address some of the concerns that you have, pertaining to the retaining walls.
Okay, Attorney Thomas, is Mr. Silva ready?
I believe he was admitted, yes.
Good evening. My name is Manny Silva from Rose Tea Zone Company at 35 Brentwood Avenue, Fairfield, Connecticut. Here, I'll just pull up my plans here. So some of the, one of the comments that we had was about the numbering of the spaces. The parking spaces was a little jumbled up, and we corrected that. As you can see here, we have these 61 spaces shown in order. They were just kind of haphazard. The numbering was anyway. And then on one of the other questions was on the retaining walls and the grading. So Mr. Panico had asked what the grade out here was, because there is a kind of a top of a knob here. So there is a retaining wall now here, and then because we are lowering the grade here, and then there's another retaining wall here. In between here, you have this flat area, which is now at 78, which you can come around at elevation 78 and it'll be all flat. And this is where you could have some recreational space. There's a small slope going down this way. It's probably 4 to 1. It's definitely climbable. So you could access it from this parking lot here. There is another retaining wall, small one here, that will retain this parking lot. I believe, which is a little higher than the area down below here. And then, as Mr. Geddes was saying, there is a retaining wall here, or there's a wall here to stop headlights, which has a stem on it. But also this area, we are proposing to be higher than the adjacent grade, about 10 feet. So there's going to be a retaining wall here in the corner.
Do those walls come above grade?
Yes, they're, especially this one here. It's going to come above grade and essentially high enough to block the headlights from the vehicles up on top.
Do you still have room for the automobile to overhang?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think the only one that gets kind of close, so because we used
Well, you
over here, you can see that we have an overhang separation.
Yes, that would looks like it's fine. But whenever you have an 18-foot depth space, the only way the 18-foot depth works is when there's ability for the car to overhang.
I don't know if that's 100% true. I mean, so
then go back to the standards in the zoning regulations as to
right,
what
right. It requires it for that, but so we could actually we can slide this over and then get another 2 feet here for an overhang, and we'll have to look at what we got to do here. We'll probably have to push out the wall.
Well,
obviously we have time to work a lot of these details out because it is conceptual, but I wasn't sure if it was conceptual.
Yeah, let me point out that I don't remember what we're dealing with. I don't think that the overhang and whether or not in 18 feet, I think 18 feet is more than sufficient for most cars these days, certainly, but I don't think it's a health or safety issue that you have a 2-foot overhang, a parking issue.
And then there was another concern about the location of the underground gallery system. I mean, I think I kind of addressed it at night that there was really no issue with having the galleries under the building here. We have observation ports and cleanouts here on the ends. And then a vac truck can come in here just like the garbage pickup guys and extend their hose and vacuum these galleries. Another question which came out today was, do we have a WPCA application or approval? And yes, we went to WPCA maybe 6 months ago, maybe it's longer now. And they approved the flow coming out of the site. And that's correct. The person that commented does go to Stratford, but that was all approved maybe about 6 months ago. So again, he also asked about the maintenance of this gallery system. The maintenance is what happens is we supply operation and maintenance manual to the. We also have it here on the plan, but we have a operation and maintenance manual that we give to the city engineer. He reviews it, looks at it, and then we file that. And then that manual will be on premises and be used by the property manager to so they know when, at what frequency to clean the galleries and the catch basins and the storm and the water grit separator that we have. I'm trying to think what else. I think that was it.
The issue, I don't know, Manny, whether you can comment on the issue of blasting or anything more than what I said.
Right.
that it's-
So yeah, so
there's-
we obviously there is some grade that we have to flatten out here. The rock here is kind of exposed. It's a knob up in the air that has been weathered. It's possible that it could be removed mechanically. We only know when we get out there and start removing the overburden and going at it. But if there was any blasting done, it would have to go to the fire marshal, and he'd have to approve the blasting plan. And you know, they do a pre-blast survey of all the properties in the area and check if there was any damage, and if there is there insurance to pay for any kind of damages. There's no concern about wells, as the area is all serviced by public water. And certainly there's no, as Attorney Dominic Thomas said, there's no issue with the methane in blasting. It's not at any kind of high concentration like that it would cause an issue. To
Mr.
go
Silva,
on.
are you 100% sure about that? That whole area is public water?
No, thank you.
That's wrong.
What's that?
Are you absolutely sure that that whole area is public water?
I can't hear whoever's speaking.
It's Chairperson Harger. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. I was asking if you were absolutely sure that the whole area had public water.
I know that the adjacent area has public water, yes, and I think all of Pine Rock Park is serviced by public water because of before they started doing the methane reclamation on the landfill site. They had wells that were contaminated by some methane gas. So they put in a piping system in the landfill to collect any methane that's been building up underneath the cap. I don't know if anybody remembers, but I do when I was younger, that the cap burped at one time and released a bunch of methane. But now that doesn't happen because they actually actively collect it. And in the meantime, they also had to, I think, provide city water to the neighboring areas because of that concern with any kind of methane in the water. So I don't think methane is going to be an issue here.
Okay, I would request that the applicant submit a letter from the appropriate authority here in City Hall confirming exactly where the city water lines are and if there are any residents that are on wells.
Correct. We can provide that.
Yeah, well, no, wait a second, hold on first of all, the authority to determine where the water lines are might be Aquarian, if they are the ones individually responsible for it. I'm not sure if it's in the city. Second of all, the issue of wells and whether or not somebody's hooked up. The fact is that public water in the area was supplied. I think that was even stated by members of the public the last time. If there are people that did not hook up and are still on wells, the fact of the matter is that is part of the pre-blast survey, if that's the concern. But other than that, it's not our responsibility. We're not going to do anything that would impact their wells. And if there is any blasting, that blasting would require and can require that anybody with wells can get their well water tested and their well draw tested.
Attorney Thomas, what I'm asking is that I would agree that it's an Aquarian that would be able to confirm it, but there should be some ability to determine somewhere where city water service extends to. Whether or not an individual homeowner has hooked up is another thing, and that's not what I'm referring to. But where is there
Okay.
city water service?
We certainly can check with the appropriate authority to find out where the water mains are.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there anything else, Mr. Silva?
I think Mr. Panico also asked me for, or someone did, for a section through the site. Here's the lighting plan. Also, someone had a question, the lighting plan. So mostly it's going to be lighting under the building here. And then there's going to be some night sky LED heads here, here, and here. And there's going to be one here and here. But majority of the lighting is going to be under the building itself. And it's going to be these kind of recessed lighting things. The section is here. As you can see, here's the grade coming from Long Hill Avenue. It kind of picks up right here where we have our landscaped area. You'll have the parking area underneath. And then the natural grade comes up like this, but we're going to make that flat. And then you'll have the upper parking lot. And here's where you can see where the upper parking lot is a fill condition. Run it over there.
Mr. Silva,
Guy.
Mr. Silva.
Yep.
Back up for a minute. On that site lighting plan sheet, SB8. What
Yep.
about is there any lighting in the parking lot?
Yes, there's going to be exterior fixture here. As you can see, there's going to be zeros on the property line. So there's no light spillage onto adjacent properties. And then there's going to be one here.
Here's on. The cursor is going crazy.
Can you see where I'm pointing?
Do a circle.
Okay, no problem. Let's see.
Can't see the little hand.
No, I can't see the rule.
Sorry.
Oh, that's much better.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll do it here. There's a pole light here,
Got it.
pole light here, and then there's a pole light right here, and a pole light here, and then there's going to be one out here at the entrance. For the, I don't know if we're having a controlled access or not, but that's a light for the driveway itself. And then these little dots that you see here are just the cans inside the garage deck, and the ceiling above.
There's one at the street also, I see.
Right there. Oh, this one right here. Yep. Sorry.
There's one at the end. Oh, you got the one at the end of the parking lot. Okay.
Yeah. Because this is exterior. This is not covered by the building. This is out and open. So that's why it has a pole light.
Why you have that particular drawing up, since it shows, so, I see the location where the rubbish is going to be picked up internally. Is that area out of view from outside, or is that open? I was having difficulty trying to figure out.
It's closed off. He has a.
It is closed off. Okay.
Yeah, on this side. Yeah. Yeah.
All
So
right.
there's a door on the inside here, and then it looks like a building column coming up from the outside.
Well, maybe later we'll go back and look at the building elevation.
Yeah, I think it's like some kind of stone column that comes up, and I think that's what that is.
Okay.
Okay.
At least that's
All right.
what my belief is, anyway.
SB9.
So we'll go here. SP9. Is this SP9? Yep.
Yep.
So as you can see, I'm going to zoom in here on the actual section. You could see here, this is the natural grade line as you come up. I can actually, let me draw it so the grade, this is the natural grade line as it comes up. And then once we start cutting it down here, the grade is going to follow this line here in the garage. And then that's going to be flat across. And then you're going to come up. This is going to be the area that's parking outside. That's at visitor spaces out near the west side of the building. And then you can see this is a fill.
Visitor spaces out there?
Yeah, there's about 10, I think.
There will be non-assigned spaces.
Right. I call them.
Well,
Yeah, they're not assigned spaces.
They're the exterior spaces to the west.
they'll be full.
And then here's that retaining wall that we were talking about, and then we'll match grade out here.
At that location, it's what, about a 6 or 8 foot wall?
Yeah, correct. And then you can see how basically the grade that comes up and the building sits on top, more or less what the natural grade would be. I think it's recessed a little bit because the natural grade is about coming up to this. This is the basement, first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth, and it's somewhere natural grade lies somewhere between the second and third floor, and then it drops off. And then there's this little lull valley in here, and that's if you go back to the very first sheet, is this kind of, there's kind of like a basin
Why
here,
did
a
you
lull.
opt to put that, why did you opt to put that wall
Here?
set back from the property line as opposed to on the property line?
We could put it against the property line. I just like to have them step back as if I can, only for maintenance of the wall later on or constructability, without having to have easements on other people's property. I mean, we can build these walls without right on the property line without going onto the other property. But if you can give it a little bit of setback, it's always a good idea. But it's not necessary.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
That's it for me. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions for Mr. Silva from the commission or Mr. Panico?
No, I'm glad that this is only going to be conceptual stage, so we just need to worry about the major issues.
Okay, and Attorney Thomas, what do you have next for us?
Well, first of all, Manny, could you stop sharing,
Yep.
Would anybody want me to share the elevation to see, would Mr. Panico want me to share the elevation?
I
To
have
see what's
one
outside
question.
what?
One question just came to mind. The WPCA approval that you said you have obtained, how many units does it cover?
I'll have to check what the unit count was on the application. As you know, the WPCA doesn't issue approval letters. You just have to go in the minutes. And then when you go in for your building permit, they'll sign it off. But I'll check what that unit count was.
Did you go
And-
did you go into the application process with a unit count?
You.
It was, I
the
think it was one of the first things that I did. So I don't remember what iteration of the building. The building has changed since then. But it was the very first thing that I did was go get the PCA approval.
Yeah, again, the way they're doing it, the way they do it, even with Stratford, because I was corrected on this, is you go to the Shelton WPCA. Shelton is supposedly aware of what capacity there is in Stratford, and that's how you present it. It would have been either 30 or 40 units, but we can check on what was presented to them. But then the final determination is when we get a final approval. And we have to go back to them and say, okay, this is the number of units that has been approved. But yes, you have to go
And
to,
if that
you don't
number of
go-
units exceeds the flow, they have to amend the flow approval?
I don't
No,
we can go
no,
back
no,
there
there's
and I don't think there'll be any issue with capacity.
Right.
But I just have to check if we filed a 30 or a 40
Right.
unit application. That's all.
right, there's no flow approval from the perspective of Shelton. Shelton wants to be aware of it. There's an interlocal agreement that, as we all learned, or we should have learned in the 2018 Beacon Point Marina thing, has never been updated or anything like that. So it was actually that applicant that went to Stratford, and Stratford at that point did an analysis, and there was a substantial amount of gallonage remaining. But the procedure is not to go to, Stratford. The procedure that Shelton WPCA prefers is you go to them. And they are, I'm going to assume, in contact with Stratford WPCA as to the amount of gallons. Certainly, if it were to end, if there were to be no more accessibility, then any developer, not this client, but any developer in the South End is going to have issues, because as we all learned, WPCA is a separate entity. Nothing you do here commits them to anything. But for that, with that, we don't, at this point, we've never received a report from the engineer. We've never received a report for the fire marshal. And I looked after Mr. Rossetti said it was received today. I looked on the, and I may have missed it. I looked on the Google Drive and I didn't see it. So that's our presentation in responding to the concerns that were raised.
No. Okay, thank you, Attorney Thomas. I'm going to open it up to the public. We have just 2 people who have signed up. So,
City officials.
yeah. Are there any city officials here that wanted to comment on this particular application? Mr. Angley's, come on up. Yeah. Okay.
John Angley, 676 Long Hill Avenue, Shelton. A couple of items. No wells in Pine Rock.
Closer.
Is it on?
Yeah, just get closer.
A little closer?
Tap it to see.
It's on. It's on.
Okay.
You just need to speak closer to it. It's not a strong microphone.
I put it in-
That's better.
I thought if I put it in my mouth.
That's better.
I don't think you
But
want it.
there are those, I believe that did come out last public session, that there are wells in the upper parts. Collection of methane statistics. I don't believe that we've had any records from DEP. DEP is responsible for the landfill and the maintenance of the landfill and all the information. I don't think we've got any information from them, collection information regarding methane at the landfill or like the street from the landfill. There definitely is records that we have here when we used to get the reports that of the collection on the Long Hill Avenue side of River Road. So those records are here in City Hall. We, I believe the mayor recently sent a letter to DEP and asking them to bring us up to date on the collection records that we don't receive from them. I don't think they even done anything for the last 5 years. But they're also talking about the landfill. They're also talking about a closure plan, and we haven't been consulted, and we're supposed to be. So we've incorporated that in the letter, and we've asked them to get involved and made them aware of what's going on. I believe those are the two. The third thing, and I think the most important thing, the city engineer, you said, has not submitted a report. I think you ought to go after him and make sure that he does, because this is absolutely necessary. I had conversations with the city engineer about the entrance from the site, and it comes out. The driveway comes out right at the intersection of Mohawk and Long Hill Avenue, and he thought that was a no-no, and it wasn't going to allow it. And he said he was going to speak to that. So I think it's important to hear from him and put his feet to the fire and make sure he gets the report in. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other elected officials? Okay, if not, we have on the speaker list, Ted Chmielski on Oronoke Trail.
First of all, let's get my name spelled right, because you guys killed it at SIS. It's CHMIELEWSKI.
Okay. Thank you. I
My name
have
is
it.
Ted Chmielewski. I reside at 72 Oronoke Trail. I'm a United States Army combat veteran, and I've been in building for 40 years. Well, nobody up here can tell me about blasting. First of all, by the state of Connecticut, you need 19 feet. 19 feet from ground level to the bottom of the first floor. That leaves 11.5 feet for plumbing air conditioning, everything else. It took 38 charges to get city water into my backyard. You know what's gonna take, blast that? Charges mean a stick of dynamite. Okay, you're looking over 200 charges. I'm still on I'm on city water and city well. Because I water my garden and water my grass. I've been evacuated from my house since 1985, when I first moved to Shelton. I've been evacuated from my house twice because of methane gas leaks. You start blasting, you gotta get insurance.
Okay, thank you, sir. And next,
I'm not done yet.
oh, you're not?
Because if something happens to me or my family, I feed my lawyer raw meat. I will sue the builder and you.
Thank you. And next is Paulette Campbell.
Hi, I'm Paulette Campbell. I'm the daughter of Paula Zahar, who lives at 21 Algonquin Road, a bordering property to this proposed atrocity. I'm going to do my best because the minute I walked in here, my blood pressure rose. So yes, our health is being affected by this daily. First, I want to say, I know we've addressed it, the traffic. I feel like a lot of this study is a lot of assumptions because as someone, I've lived in apartments and I've lived with roommates because apartments and times are tough. You need to have roommates, you know, to afford it. And some people are married or families. And I had a 2 apartment bedroom several times, and there's 3 of us there. And guess what? Each one of us had our own vehicle. So if you're going to assume that that's enough, we also have to assume on the higher end, if there are 40 units, there's going to be at least 40 cars. And in those units, whether they are 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 1 bedroom doesn't mean 1 person. There could be married people, there could be roommates. So there could be at least 2 cars. So now you can even double it to 80. And that doesn't include visitors, holidays when people are coming to visit. We all know that parking, no matter how you dress it up, is not going to work in this area. It's just not. I also want to know, as a bordering property, we talk about getting rid of some of these slopes and the rock. Our property owns part of that rock, so I want to know, how is that possible to do some blasting? And if that's the case, if we own part of that rock, how does that happen? Is blasting still allowed? We like our rock ledge. It goes the whole length of the back property. It is, you know, we have a slope going up and there's the rock. We do not want to lose that. And whether that part stays or not, it's going to get damaged with blasting. In addition, I'm going to say it again. I know my mother mentioned it. In those properties that border, there are concrete, huge pipes that come from the playground pound with water that goes underground all the way through. So with how close those are, blasting is for sure going to crack those. That's going to lead to flooding in the properties. And I know you say there's insurance and stuff, but that's a lot of headaches they don't need. Okay. They're in their times where they're retiring and should be enjoying their life and not dealing with flooding properties, loud noises, a lot of damage. And I know this is atrocity for the whole neighborhood, but I know these families right here are the actual boring people. They're going to have to look at this every day and live with this. In addition, I want to talk about, I know we mentioned the septic tanks. There are people still with wells and septic tanks in the area, even on Algonquin Road, which is very close to where the site is going. You could check into that. That's on you. But I was just curious of the person who does the studies, like even with parking, do you ever go back and recheck to see how accurate your studies are? You're saying we only need this or that. When you come back and it's full, you're like, oh, 61 was perfect. We got it right on the number. Or do you see the overflow? Because I know there's going to be parking in other places. I already see, and I understand, and I want to understand, I understand Casanova, the people who run it are different. They're not from, you know, part of this. I know they own the property, but not the restaurant business. But every day it's busy. I'm very happy. I'm very happy they have a happy, busy restaurant. But I look at that parking lot, it's full, and they're circling, looking for places to park to get in there. So I can only imagine, you know, if there's some parking that now opens up alongside that property, let me just run over there and park there quick and come down and get my pizza or come down and have dinner and go back. You know, by the time someone comes with a tow truck, they're already going to be gone. And that leaves that there. But, sorry, there's one more. I want to know about the runoff that goes onto the bordering properties. You know, we talk about the other areas going towards River Road. But what about on the other properties? The runoff that's going there. These are just all questions we have. And as I said, we're just very upset by this and, you know, this is our livelihood too. This is our neighborhood. And you've all mentioned it before. I hear a lot of people talking about it. You don't know the place. You haven't been there. You're speaking on a place you know nothing about. Okay? This is like, we are a family. You know what I mean? Small roads, small homes. This does not fit there. And if there's anyone that could question that, oh, one more thing, the traffic study. I'm sorry. The traffic study, maybe I have this wrong. We're saying that you have like 3 people going in and out peak hours. Again, these are just studies, to me, just assumptions. You don't know that. If I'm going to assume there's 40 units, I'm going to assume at any time 40 cars can be going out and in. I'm going to assume more people than 40 people are going to live there. That could be 80 going in and out. So if you're going to give me assumptions in your studies, you gotta assume on the high end, not the low end. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. Mr. Rossetti, anybody participating remotely? Use Zoom's raise your hand feature. If there's anybody participating remotely who'd like to comment on this application, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9 on your phone. Okay,
Tom Harbinson, 15 Soundcrest Drive. I had a question as the applicant was presenting the site plans. There seems to be an odd discrepancy between the property boundary as shown on the site plans and the underlying yellow line, which I assume is the city's GIS property line, particularly as it would conflict or show a reduced setback on the southeast corner. I wonder if somebody could clarify what the actual property boundary line is. Is what they're showing on the drawing a proposed lot line revision between them and an adjacent property, or is there something incorrect in the city's GIS system? Thank you.
I'll have, do you have other questions or do you want me to respond?
Mr. Attorney General, let me just.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, let me just ask, Mr. Rossetti, is there anyone else participating remotely? No? Okay. All right, so Attorney Thomas, do you want to respond to the public's comments?
Yeah, we'll respond to the couple of points that were brought up tonight. I'll begin with the last and Mr. Harbison's, and I don't know if anybody heard me chuckle because one of the things that occupied the good portion of the afternoon was being able to explain to someone why GIS records shouldn't be relied on ever, because somebody actually didn't think a lot existed in another town in the valley because the GIS didn't show it as existing as a lot.
Could you please just answer?
Okay, there is no issue. There is no lot line revision. There is nothing. I think Manny, and I'll let him because there's another question Manny's going to answer. Laying the plan over the GIS is beneficial for people to see it over a picture. There is no issue to move lot lines or anything like that. And with that, I think there was a question. The other question was about blasting. And of course, the blasting will be controlled and is under the guise not only of the fire marshal, but of the local blasting ordinance. But again, the blasting is a possibility. And then I would turn it over to Manny for 2 responses. One concerning the any removal of the knob and the fact that this area supposedly goes across a property line, and second of all, with respect to drainage, I believe, to the west that was asked.
Hello, Manny Silva from Rostizo. Yeah, so the GIS has no bearing on where actual property lines are, as you can see here. The actual property lines are this dark line here. The yellow is the GIS, and I mean the GIS is you can't
Manny,
rely
you're
on
not
it for
screen sharing. Manny, there's
Oh,
nothing
okay.
up
I'm
on
sorry.
it.
Yep. Hold on. Sorry about that. So you can see the yellow line is the GIS line, which has no bearing, it's not a surveyed line. You can see it actually crosses it over through this house. So you can't, the GIS is not, it's basically a replacement of the tax assessor map, which isn't a surveyed, is not a representative of any kind of survey or anything like that. So what the lines are these dark lines, which we are using. And again, there's no revision to the lot line itself. As for the knob, it as you can see it right here, when we'll just be taking down basically the one face of it, and then it'll be standing up. If we chip it away, it'll be a slow process of just bringing it down layer by layer. And if they blast it, they'll just drill very close holes along here, and then they'll blast it in a fracture and then pull down that fracture. And then this will be actually just standing up along here. And then just to refresh my memory, about the drainage to the west.
To the property, to the,
this
the property up there.
Up
I
here?
assume that was.
Yeah, so the parking
there
lot.
And,
So the parking lot here, the water drains to this one catch basin, which then takes it up underneath the building and towards the underground gallery system. And this lot here is pitched towards the garage itself. And then we have a low point here and one here, where that water will be collected and put into the underground gallery system. So effectively, any kind of runoff that runs down to the west will be reduced by 100% because we'll be collecting it all and then storing it here. Same thing for any water that's coming to the south here, all the while will be collected in the parking lot and then it redirected into the gallery system.
what about roof drains, Manny, or anything like that?
Roof drains will come down to along a column and then come into the gallery system also.
Okay. I think that answers the questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, it's just breaking up for some reason.
Hello, I haven't recognized you. Okay.
Mandy, could you stop screen sharing? Okay.
Trina Thomas, are you all set?
Yeah, I was just asking Mandy to please, can you stop screen sharing? Stop the screen share? Okay, there you go. I think someone said something in the background. We couldn't hear, I couldn't hear it.
Attorney Thomas, before you go on, I'm going to recognize person from the audience, Paulette. Come back up and quickly ask what the clarification was that you needed, so we can get that on the record.
2 clarifications. I did see where you talked about the drainage on the west side. I'm looking at 21 Algonquin Road where you have the parking lot that you said it's sloping, but what about the piece that's next to the parking lot, the adjacent spaces? Where is that sloping that way as well? Or is it sloping towards the property of 21 Algonquin Road?
21 Algonquin is behind.
On the west side, yes.
Okay. Mr. Silva, did you follow that?
Manny, are you there? I don't know if.
Happened to him. Mr. Rossetti, is Mr. Silva still with us?
I think the question relates to, if I'm not mistaken, the area over here on my screen share.
That part of the property, yes, not the part that sticks out more. 21 is, yes. Go down. Go the other way. Yeah, keep going there. Yeah, that whole property there. That property there. You see how that when you go up?
Here?
Yes.
It drains away from the subject site.
I know that when you go to the right a little bit, you have that adjacent parking spaces. You talk about sloping towards River Road, but I'm looking at the part that's next to the adjacent spaces. Does that slope also towards River Road, or is that sloping towards the west, west side of 21 Algonquin Road?
Okay.
Yes, that.
Okay. So Mr. Silva isn't with us, right?
And then I have the blasting question that wasn't partially answered.
I don't know, I'm not sure, is Manny still an attendee or a participant?
No.
It
He-
drains,
Okay,
it
well, we
drains
can
to that
certainly
southwesterly
address it again,
property
but I
line.
believe his comments were that there is zero water flowage going to the other properties, that everything is being captured off the site, eventually funneled into the system. And, but again, with the disclaimer that it says JD and not PE after my name, that with respect to the drainage, again, this would be leveled, and this area here, as he said, would be more level as a result of any site work that needed to be done, and then there's a gentle slope down to here, down to this way.
Okay, Attorney Thomas, I'm gonna request then that Mr. Silva submit the answer in writing so that we can have it on the record. And I'm sure that he could listen to the YouTube. He's back?
Yeah.
Good. Mr. Silva? Is he a participant?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Mr. Rossetti?
He's coming.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know. My internet dropped out over here. Yeah. So where did I leave off, and what question do I need to
Well,
answer?
there was a question concerning the drainage off of the area that is to, I'm gonna say to the west, so to speak, of the parking lot, that area that would be where the knob is and where it's flattened. There was a question about which way does that drain?
Man, I really can't hear anybody. So the drainage is all being picked up. So the anywhere this parking lot will be coming here, this parking lot will be coming to these two basins, and then
No, Manny, can you hear
The
us?
grass area.
Can you hear us, Manny?
Again?
No, I think.
No. Is he
sorry
going?
about that again.
Yeah.
Manny, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can
Right.
hear you now. I don't know why it just keeps dropping off. I'm having trouble here.
The
at home.
question was the drainage from the grass area that is to the west of the outside parking, where there's going to be the knob taken down, and where you pointed out it was going to be leveled, and then there was going to be a 4-to-1 slope. That was the question. Any drainage from that location?
So that area is we're flattening it out. So right now there's drainage that comes off of it existing. So we're flattening it out, and it's going to be the drainage is going to be reduced just because we're flattening the grade. So
In other words, there's
there shouldn't
existing
be an issue
drainage
there. It's
that
actually a
goes
reduction.
off-site from, there's existing drainage that goes off-site now from in the natural condition.
Right. The natural condition is a steep slope, and we're making it into a flatter one. So that should reduce the amount of runoff coming from that area.
Okay.
The question is, which direction is it going to? Is it going to go to 21 Algonquin Road?
The flow.
The flow. All right, Mr. Thomas, we've attempted to move this along and to get the answers. Let me ask Paula to ask her other question about the drainage, not the drainage, the blasting. And I would request that the answers be submitted in writing. We do have to move along. Go ahead.
In that same area, you're talking about blasting and leveling, and we have that whole area is rock. In my mother's backyard, it's a whole rock ledge, which when she purchased that property, was told that part of that rock is hers. So my question is, if you are blasting that, and part of it belongs to my mother, how do you have, how do you have permission to blast it if you don't own part of it? Or do you have proof that you own part of it? And even so, if we only own part of a little bit, it's going to get damaged, and it's a beautiful backside to our property. So how can you ensure that it's not going to disappear or get damaged? And how can you blast something that may not even belong to the person that's proposing this?
Okay. We would not be blasting anything that does not belong to us. if blasting is done proximate to a property line, and again, this would be more expressed during the final site development plans when you actually knew what you had to do, whether you had to do a mechanical or blasting. The blasters would use what is called line drilling, in which they're required then to drill along a line and therefore create a very sharp face along that line of drilling that does not impact the rest of the blast. The fact that where the any blasting would have to take place after the property is fully marked, fully surveyed.
So that rock wall will remain behind my mother's yard. Is that what you're saying?
Whatever the knob is that's on your mother's property will not be affected by the blasting.
Okay.
You're a joke.
All right, thank you, Paulette. All right, any commissioners have any final comments, questions, or concerns for the applicant? How about Mr. Panico?
No further comments at this time.
All right. Addressing to the members of the commission, now, there's been a number of reports issued by the applicant, and there's been correspondence about the landfill that's been submitted by DEP. And so I'd like to recommend that the commission staff be authorized to retain the services of a qualified and appropriate experts for a peer review of each report and the deep correspondence, with the cost of the peer review to be paid by the applicant. Those peer review reports should include, but they're not limited to, the following areas: engineering data, including blasting and demolition plans and the potential impact on city sewer and water lines and area wells, site access, building massing and size, retaining wall requirements, configuration, connection to existing services, drainage and grading, appropriate use of topography, fire separation, parking for tenants and visitors, refuse and snow removal. Secondly, all traffic studies to determine if each is complete, accurate, and consistent with current traffic standards. If there are any deficiencies with area roadways, traffic volumes, trip generation, vehicle queuing time, sight lines, and the number of and severity of reported accidents. If the bus stop on River Road across from Cumberland Farms is accessible for pedestrians who need to access it from the Cumberland Farms side of River Road, Route 110. If there are any improvements that need to be implemented, including the addition of signalization at the intersection of River Road, Route 110 and Long Hill Avenue. And finally, all architectural plans, including building design, elevations, and conformance to city building code. So that is my proposal. What does the rest of the commission feel about something like that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would like to be able to address some of the comments. You're more than welcome to have peer reviews. I'm sure you're familiar with 8-1C, the governing fees and what fees can be used for. Certainly having a discussion with the applicant on caution. Our position is very simple, that we have presented a very authoritative traffic report from a very qualified traffic engineer, as the same with engineering and architecture. As you know, from 8-1C, you can ask an applicant, the application fees can be used for consultants, and they can be used up by consultants. So the application fee in this application, I think, was over $3,000. So you have money there to address consultants. The application fees cannot be used under the statute or under the case law to determine for any salaried employees, and you have an engineer on staff. If you're going to hire other engineering people, certainly we'll have a discussion as to whether or not, my position is, if you need peer review, the city can pay for it itself out of the application fee process. Second of all, there is absolutely no basis to hire somebody to do a building code analysis at this stage of this application. It is unnecessary, and it appears like an attempt to just financially burden the applicants if you're going to claim that they have to do it. but building code is within the purview of your building official, and we are nowhere near that stage as of right now. Certainly you have the right for peer review, and certainly the applicant, we can sit down and discuss whether or not in a certain circumstance, after you've used up the application fee, whether or not we would have a discussion on any cost sharing, which if it is necessary. But certainly getting reports on the dump or anything like that are not peer reviews. You can peer review our traffic, you're more than welcome to do that. And I think it's that's usually an appropriate thing, because 9 times out of 10, unless you hire one of the professional opponents, the traffic reviews usually come back and support the presentation.
All right, thank you, Attorney Thomas. So is there a motion by a commissioner to authorize staff to retain the services as I indicated?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion from Commissioner Kelly. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Amato has seconded. So on the motion made by Commissioner Kelly and seconded by Commissioner Amato, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Amato,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins, Commissioner Lascos,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. All right, seeing that we have a lot of unfinished business with this particular application, is there a motion to continue the public hearing? Commissioner Kelly's making the motion to continue. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Tiki is seconded. And on a roll call, Commissioner Amato,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Lascos,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So this particular application will be scheduled by staff to be on the agenda of a future meeting, more likely after all reports have been received. Okay, next on the agenda is application 2227. If there are members of the audience who are going to be leaving at this time, I'd ask you to do so in a quiet and orderly manner.
Excuse me, am I allowed to speak? I have my name on the sheet.
To Mohawk?
21 Wappy Walk Trail. We
Come
signed the sheet, yeah. We might have signed the wrong one. Yeah. this is-
Sign wrong one. There's a continuation, so at the time of the continuation, you have to make sure you sign up on the right one.
Come back.
All right, we're going down to our next agenda item.
Welcome to staying and comment on cannabis. That was unfortunate.
Yeah. All right, so this is Dominic, application 2227, Dominic Thomas for 62 Center Street. Assessors map 129D, lots 50 and 51. For modification to PDD number 90 and final site development plans for retail office space with a 5-level parking garage and rooftop restaurant. This public hearing for this application opened on January 25th, 2023. Besides the items already posted on the city's website, which were acknowledged on January 25th, is a new artist rendering of the garage, a site plan of level 7, and a photo of proposed construction material that had been submitted. Mr. Rossetti, any comments from the public that need to be acknowledged since the opening of the public hearing on February 22nd? No. Okay. Attorney Thomas, what would you like to share with us about the new material that's been posted?
Yeah, I'll be able to share the three. Again, Attorney Dominic Thomas, Cohen & Thomas, 315 Main Street, Derby, Connecticut, representing the applicant. Has Joe Mingalello been admitted as a participant?
Needs to accept the invite.
Excuse me?
He needs to accept the invite.
Hopefully Joe can hear us and accept the invite. Joe, can you hear us? Oh,
We're at that.
Did he accept it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I get the materials.
All right. The samples.
Okay, I will, these are the, just to, I'm sure they were, put on the website in plenty of time. This was the materials. This was, there was also a revised elevation and a revised, a floor plan. Joe, are you there?
Is he on mute?
Hear me now?
Yes.
He's got two speakers
Yes,
on.
yes, you sound like you're in the back of a closet, but yes, could you speak up loud?
Ask
Which,
him, he has two speakers on,
Yeah.
a phone and a computer or something.
Okay.
Let me just show him first.
Joe, which of the items do you want to go through first?
He's talking, but I can't hear him.
Right, hear me now?
Very faintly.
Very faintly.
Problem with this computer, same as last time. 'Cause it's all the way up volume. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, that's a little bit, yes.
Okay, can we, you're on A5, that's good. One of the issues, architectural issues, was the parapet, the lower left-hand corner drawing, the height of the parapet, and the concern of any, that's it, okay, perfect. The concern of anything falling off this parapet onto the sidewalk below. So what we did was we added a glass windscreen, okay, that's 18 inches high. So and it's set back a foot. So if somebody puts a drink on this guardrail, let's call it, it won't fall into the sidewalk. Somebody would have to throw it over the windscreen. And that windscreen's 18 inches high, so it comes from finished floor to the top of it 5 feet. So that was one of the issues that we had to address. Okay, and then the other one was the material, the two brick materials, and I think you've already shown that the samples, and they're also at the office.
Well, yeah, these.
Yeah. The colors that we would like to use, and we reflected this in the rendering. So if you can go to the rendering next. And that's it. So the two corners of the building on Center and Quorum, and then the one going up, which is the entrance to the parking, and the restaurant is the other end of it, the building, and that's in the same two materials. And then we changed the material, the color of the material, the brick color, to a deeper red in between to create some architecture with it. So that was really trying to create more of less of a parking garage look and more of maybe of an office building. And so what we did here, basically all the framing with aluminum tube framing and integrated screening system. Okay, they look like glass, but they're not. You have to remember that we have to ventilate. This is a parking garage. It needs to be ventilated. One of two ways: you can do it naturally through openings or mechanically, and we don't want to get into the mechanical. So we're trying to do this and create some more of an office looking building as opposed to a parking garage. So those were the three issues that we really needed to address. Everybody?
Mr. Mangalolo, I have a question. This is a major corner in downtown where you have Horn Avenue going up to the right as the slope of the sidewalk shows, and you have Center Street to the left where the person pushing a stroller is pictured.
Correct.
For the glass, back right corner of glass to be in the back, I think that's a prominent particular piece of design. Had you ever considered putting that in the front corner above where it says retail?
above that whole section.
Mhm.
Yeah, here's the issue that we're gonna run into.
Closer to his speaker. It's very hard to hear.
It's very difficult to hear you, Joe.
Get closer.
All right, I'm trying. I'm in South Carolina, so this is not easy.
Ah.
Okay, the issue, the issue is a building code issue. In order to use natural ventilation, and that's a requirement for this project, and I'll tell you why as I move forward. We would like it to look like glass, but what happens is that the building code requires us to have at least 51% of the enclosure, and that's the wall area, has to be naturally ventilated in order to meet that. Or we don't meet that, then we end up getting into a situation where we have to provide mechanical ventilation. And that's very expensive. The problem with this, and I don't know if everyone remembers the previous project, okay? And what happened was we had 42 apartments approved for this project. We went through construction documents, we got bids from contractors, and the encapsulation of the ground brook there, of the brook, okay, was $900,000 it cost us to do that. Okay, so we still have to do that again, and it's almost 3 years later. So I bet you it's going to cost us $1 million just to do that. So we're trying to do as much value engineering as we can to make this project happen. It's good for the city, we need parking. We want to do it. We got a nice restaurant. It's a great mixed use building. So we're going to try to find a happy medium there where we can, you know, we need to do natural ventilation, but at the same time, try to make it look as an office building, okay? So it becomes a number cruncher at the end once we get to the construction document for permitting, all right? So that's the issue.
The back right corner above the section, the sign that says restaurant.
Yep.
Those are windows.
That's all glass, yes.
That's all glass.
Enclosed in its own environment. There's elevators, stairs, and access to the both for the parking and the restaurant. Mhm.
Excuse me, Commissioner Kelly, Mr. Bigelow. Do you have a shot of the back, rendering of the back of the,
Center Street side?
not Center Street?
Well, yeah.
If you're looking at it from Porky's.
We're actually, yeah, we're looking at this project. This is from Quorum and Center. This is from that new building across the street.
Yeah, we have, know that. Commissioner Kelly is asking you have one from the other direction, from.
Looking at the, from the other end, from the upper Quorum area.
No, from lower Center Street, back.
From Howe Avenue towards Center Street.
Gotcha. No, we do not have that elevation. And we have it in elevations, yes. It's mostly hidden. That elevation is mostly hidden by the Shelton Printing Building.
No, I know that, but is it opened?
Oh, yeah, yes. Oh, right, absolutely. The balance of it, it'll all look like this, the same materials that you see here.
All right, so wouldn't that be more than 51% if you had both sides basically open?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, I don't know, but I'm thinking right now, based on this.
I mean, then could you put glass in that center one or the corner? You know, it seems like you have more than 51% open.
I don't know until we run the numbers. Yeah, you're looking at this here, so. Sorry.
Maybe we can find that out.
Mr. Mangalello, I'm just gonna ask Commissioner Kelly, what is the point you're trying to get at?
The point I'm trying to get at is that if these could be glass, this could be all open all the way around, then that wouldn't.
He'd
that
have
would be
his
more than
51%.
51%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's a possibility. And if we can get to there, we will do that.
Okay, all right, great.
No problem.
Yeah,
with it.
something that would make it look more like an office structure at that corner,
Yes.
or give the illusion of an office structure rather than a continuation of the parking garage.
Correct. I got it. Mhm.
While we have you, Mr. Mangalala, was there any other thoughts on the entrance to the parking garage? Was Center Street the only possible and best place to enter the parking garage? I mean, not Center Street, Corm Avenue, Center Street wasn't an option?
That's correct. There is we do have access, but it's only to the lower level. Okay, and that'll probably be used for employees only that work in this building, I'm thinking. But the main entrance to this parking structure is off Coram Avenue, as you see it here on Coram Avenue elevation, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't, we have to do ramping. The property's not big enough to create interior ramps. We looked at that really, what was our options? And this, to make this a parking garage, this is the only way to get, we're creating this ramp as you see at the east elevation.
Wouldn't that lower level be for the retail store?
Pardon?
Wouldn't that lower level of parking be for the retail store?
Yeah, it can be.
Mr. Mangalala, you
It
have to
may
get
be-
close to the mic.
It may be for the, as we said before, it may be for the retail store. And it would also could be for employees
Okay.
in the lower level. That the retail store necessarily, they wouldn't necessarily go in there and park there. The retail store can park in the parking garage and get down, customers can get down to the retail store. We may limit it, we may limit that area to just employees.
But that retail store is only 2,800 square feet, so ultimately it probably end up being 2 small retail shops, possibly. Yeah, it's not that big.
Okay. Any questions from the commission or Mr. Panico or Mr. Mangalala?
I'm not convinced that the last rendering is the best way to deal with the 2 different materials that are being proposed. The lighter colored mixture of brick that almost takes on the character of stone and the dark red. I'm wondering, as an alternative, since we tend to associate the red brick with office construction, would it make more sense to use the lighter color brick on the first floor level of the retail store and a little bit of a connection on the Coram Avenue side going to the main tower, and then have the top floor elevations be 100% red brick?
I mean, we could present that one, yeah.
I don't know, it's worth a look. I just, right now, I look at it and I see the big tower unit in the back, and I see the little thing up in the corner, and it just, it looks like just what it was, an attempt to change the character of the surface. And I'm trying to relate it
Yeah,
to something different. It may, I don't know. I just wondering if it should be looked at.
we could look at another option. It's not a big deal. The rendering's all done. It's a change of color of material.
In other words, if you took that retail level
Mhm.
and all of that light brickwork and extend it back to where it meets with the tower up on Coram, and then everything above that go to the dark brick.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different options, sure.
I don't know, what does the commission think?
No, I wouldn't, I don't think that that's such a bad idea. It's worthwhile.
And you have to think about what this looks like from Center Street along the Center Street driveway. You can't just cut materials off on the elevation, the front elevation, and say the other side's a side, so it's different material. So it has to be looked at as a unit.
Okay.
All right, any other comments, Mr. Panico?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Mr. Marinello about, is there a reason for the slight offset in the Center Street facade?
Yeah, we broke it up because typically your downtown urban environments are a bunch of small buildings, 30
Okay.
feet, and they change materials, they change architecture, creating that type of environment. That's what they do. That's
Okay.
different. That's the only reason we did it. To break up that facade and create that.
Mhm. All right.
Okay.
Okay, I think Commissioner Parkins had a question.
Recording in progress. Oh my gosh. Joe, this is Commissioner Parkins. You had indicated that the red material was going to look like wood.
No, that's the dark
Oh,
color.
you changed it.
But it's brick.
So you changed it to a brick. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Any other questions from the commission?
This Commissioner Ticky, I agree with Mr. Panico, and I would be interested in seeing the rendering that Commissioner Kelly said, or at least just a head-on of on Center Street. I think would be helpful. This way shows us much of the building, but I think most people will be seeing the Center Street, and I think that'd be helpful to have.
Absolutely. Okay.
So is he being asked to switch? So what's
He's going to
light
show another version
what's
with
switching?
the first floor would be all the stone, lighter stone, and the upper floors would be all brick.
Oh,
Is that correct?
The top floors.
The first
Well,
floor-
I would still leave the tower where you go into the restaurant. I would leave that.
Oh, okay, so
entire
the
multi-story
tower is
unit.
still, okay, it's the front corner. Okay,
And I would carry that treatment along the ground floor elevation, along the ground floor portion where the retail store is located in the entryway, et cetera. And then above that, go to what looks like the solid brick. I don't know. It's take a
All
look,
right.
see what it looks like.
Stone, brick, stone,
yeah,
and then,
stone and brick.
oh, brick here.
Yeah,
Just different colors.
okay, so the two walls above the words retail would change from stone into brick on the upper elevations.
Yeah, I think what Tony's getting to is that the line, the base or the window sill above the word retail, if I were to, that would be what you call stone, but the light colored brick, that would be that line. And then I would run it all the way into the tower or the
Right.
front entrance. And then we would just change everything from there to the dark red brick. That could
Okay,
That's
Yeah,
enough.
let's see what that looks like.
all right, you can get that prepared. And if you have any questions, I'm sure you could communicate to staff.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah,
Anything
I
else?
just have a question. Are we gonna keep, is there a possibility of closing the public hearing? Are we gonna have to keep coming back in and with all these little changes to keep the public hearing open? Is there a situation
Well,
where this commission's gonna deny the parking garage because it doesn't like the look from Center Street?
Attorney Thomas, we don't have a city engineer's report yet. So,
The city engineer did a full report on the prior proposal. There's really nothing from an engineering perspective. And we submitted everything on time. It's been in there for a long time. And if you remember, Jim Swift addressed the issues from the original city engineer report. Because there was no change in the site plan. Very little change in the site plan as to the footprint of the building.
Yeah, I think, we can be going. We've been on this we submitted this application back in November, and it's 5 months now. We would like to know that we have an approved project, and then tweaking the colors a little bit, we can do that at any time. That's an easy thing to do. It's not going to change the architecture, the use, or anything that it really affects. That affects the municipality or the community. I really we all would like to get knowing we have an approved project. And then we could tweak the colors a little bit. That's an easy thing to do.
I deliberately did not go back to the applicant with my thought about the siding change because I really wanted to get the commission's opinions first.
Yeah.
But if the commission seems to think it's worth investigating, then the applicant can do it. I tend to agree with Attorney Thomas that we're really talking now about the last odds and ends of what the building is going to look like. Structurally, nothing's going to change. And site-wise, nothing has changed. So if the commission is comfortable with that, and all we need to do is iron out the architectural details, then I think it's the commission's position to do what they wish. Either keep it open until everything's ironed out, or just go ahead and close it and work out the details.
As long as those architectural changes are gonna include making that structure that's on the corner there look like it's an office.
Absolutely. Oh, I told you, it's only a matter of what do we all agree makes that happen the best?
Right,
Yeah,
Is it this or is it some other version of this?
right.
you know, we only get one shot at this. This is a building that if it gets built, it's gonna be up for a number of years, I would imagine. So I would hate to rush things along, but I will defer to the rest of the commission. So what's the consensus of the commission on moving forward with this?
I think we could. close it,
So,
yeah.
Okay.
We'll try to get out.
Close it, but staff could just communicate the rendering to us.
Yep.
Yes, to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so seeing that the consensus of the commission is
Well,
to,
Chairman, you need to.
oh, I'm sorry,
No one signed up, but you might want to.
let's acknowledge that, please, thank you.
forgot to sign up.
All right,
I just
we will now move to the public portion. And we start off with elected officials.
Thank you. I'll just be quick. Eric McPherson, 72 Wheeler Street, Dalton. Overall, can you put that rendering back up, please? I support the project. I think it's a very good project, but seeing the rendering, it's too dark. I think it's just gonna darken that corner, especially with the old Simonetti cleaner building across the street.
Which is all brick.
Yeah, I realize that, but I would like to see something in the colors and more, maybe we can look at it. Something Cedar Village type of colors, or maybe the colors for the new building that was just that's where I'm really talking about, that building, where the old donut stop was, that new building there. There's just too much red. I like the red on the tower, but I think the rest of the building that's got all of that dark red, we have to, I think, brighten it up a little bit, but overall, I support the project. And the building itself looks good, minus the darkness of the color.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McPherson. Okay, Mr. Rossetti, is there anybody from the participating remotely that's indicated they'd like to make a comment on this application?
No.
Okay,
Can I, is it too late for me?
come on up very quickly.
Yes. I just, Sharon Herman, 170 River Road. And I just want to say, I was thinking the same things that Eric McPherson just said about the color and liking the idea. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing? There's a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Kelly. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second from Commissioner Ticky. So on the motion, Commissioner Ticky,
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Mato, Commissioner Kelly, and chair votes aye. So this application will be scheduled by staff to be on the agenda of a future meeting.
In the interim, staff will work with the applicant's architects and come up with one or more alternatives to treating that exterior elevation. And we should be able to get that with our suggestions in front of the commission.
Thank you. That sounds like a plan. Next on the agenda is that the 2022-27 Affordable Housing Plan of the City of Shelton, and this is to receive public comment. Has anyone signed up?
No.
Has anyone signed up for the phone?
No. Okay. Last call from anybody here in the auditorium that wants to speak about the Affordable Housing Plan. Is that you, Mr. Angeles?
yes, thank you.
Okay.
John Angley, 676 Lone Hill Avenue. While I personally may not agree with the legislation, I think there's a measure of good faith you have done an excellent job on writing the plan. The plan that you have in front of you is very well done. And I think that we ought to show support for the plan. The Board of Aldermen, I will recommend to them to read it, and if they haven't done already done so. And when you finish and adopt it, it comes to us. And I think we should, if you adopt it, I think we should support your actions, move forward with, trying to make the best steps out of I just don't think it's totally right, but nevertheless, we gotta work within the parameters that we've got to push on us, so let's do it and make the best of it. Do it in, good faith manner, work all together and try to make the best of it and do what's right. I mean, not all these projects are wrong, they're not all wrong and they're not all right. We just have to make a decision based on what we agree on is in the best interest of our municipality. And I think if we go forward with that in mind, then I think we can achieve a lot more for the community.
Okay.
And I think you did a marvelous job on the plan. Just want to put that in the way. Thank you.
Well, we'll direct those to Mr. Rossetti, who did the bulk of the work. Mr. Inglis, I just want to mention for the public that the Board of Aldermen has to have a public hearing as well. So they will have another chance to comment on this. Okay. Before we go on, I just want to ask Mr. Rossetti, any comments received by the city office?
Yes, it is online. Would you like me to just address it?
Yeah, what is it, just one comment or? Yeah.
The comment was submitted by an attorney who does practice affordable housing law and development for affordable housing projects. I had an interesting conversation with the gentleman. His name is Mark. Hope I don't butcher his last name. AFRATE. His one comment to us was that he was surprised in the lack of commentary our plan had about LIHTC, low income housing tax credits, LIHTC, and Section 8 project vouchers. Saying, why doesn't our plan talk about those measures as part of our plan? We talked about set aside development, we talked about senior development, we talked about all these other things, ADUs, so on and so forth. The reason that, long story short, we ended up coming to is the fact that those projects that have state and federal funding by HUD or other federal programs for housing development are relatively outside of our purview. We can't mandate that a project use funding by a state agency or by a federal agency. We can support a project that uses those types of funding, and we can help direct people there. And we are certainly happy to do that on the website, but basically that's the reason why we don't mention LIHTC funds on our plan or Section 8 vouchers, because Section 8 vouchers are based on an individual. They're not based off of planning with them. And you'll find that's pretty common. Most other municipal plans, they don't talk about these mechanisms because we don't have any authority over them.
Wouldn't that be the developers?
Absolutely, 100%.
Could you give the meaning for the LIHTC again, please?
Low income housing tax credit.
Okay, thank you.
And so with those projects, generally speaking, the developer has to give a much more aggressive set aside. So you're looking at 50 to 60% of units set aside as affordable, not 30 or 20. But with that, they get a tremendous amount of money. So it's a totally kind of different ballgame. That's
It's a lot of inner cities, I believe,
Yes.
use that, right?
Okay.
But these comments are online. We wrote us one page.
Okay, and that was it, no.
Okay. Before we go any further, I just want to mention, it occurred to me that on page 26 in item 5, which is offer greater housing variety for seniors. I think we stopped a little short on how to achieve our recommendation to provide affordable housing units to those that are ages 62 and older. So I just wanted to propose that we add an additional phrase that says pursue grants to build new senior housing complexes on city-owned property. In the last paragraph, right before this, the phrase that says appoint an individual to work for the Shelton Housing Authority. So I don't know if that ever came up in the discussion that Sensible Heights and other senior housing in town have been built with grants, and I don't think we ever discussed that as to, is that a way of achieving it?
Brought up,
Yeah,
but it's absolutely
is it valid?
very valid idea.
So how did the other?
There, I mean, there's waiting lists to get into these senior housings.
Yep. So, Mr. Rossetti, do you have the affordable housing plan online? You could bring up, so if you jump down to page 26.
The online form shows page 27 for the items that Commissioner Harger is referring to.
Thank you. No more. 6. Down the bottom of that page, I think. Okay. That last paragraph starts with, even though there are now over 500 residential units, if you go to the next sentence, a recommended action that the city may consider pursuing is to pursue grants to build new senior housing complexes on city-owned property. And then, and to appoint an individual to work with the Shelton Housing Authority in the rest of the sentence. So that is my proposal.
That's a good addition.
What's the other commissioners feel?
So I made a comment myself when I talked about using underutilized properties. I wrote, why not new properties right there? So, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Laskos, you good at that end? Okay. All right, so, let's move on then to see if there's anybody here in the audience that wanted to comment on the affordable housing plan. Anybody in the sign-up sheet?
No, I gave it.
Oh. You came down this way?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Don English said.
Oh, okay, I understand. Anybody, remotely? Mr. Rossetti?
Tom?
Tom Harbinson, 15 Suncrest Drive. I had a question because I didn't quite understand it on page 17 regarding the requirement of points. It said that if you achieve 2% of the census housing count since 1990, that you might get a moratorium. And then under our current status, it shows that we have 3.06%. Does that mean that we would already qualify for a moratorium under our current status situation? That's one.
I'm gonna ask, Mr. Rossetti to come on up and.
I'll wait for him to finish.
Would you what?
Wait for him to finish.
Yeah, I have a couple other questions. I'll ask them all.
All right, go ahead.
The next one on elderly units. Were the units at the views at Long Hill included? That's next to the Wesley home, the property next to the Tall Farm. My understanding was that was deed restricted to be age 55 plus. And so looking at your page 26, it referenced a recent development on Long Hill Crossroads as being the first age restricted complex in Shelton, which I don't know that that's actually the case. And in addition to that, from my recollection, it's only recollection, Wellspring Estates off of Old Stratford Road, I believe that also was an age-restricted development. I know at the time we were doing our plan of conservation development, which I served on that committee, and that was being used as an example of age-restricted style development. So that could be perhaps researched to see if that was at least deed restricted to be 55 and over. And then on page 25, you have a concept for the expansion of the commercial business district. And I was wondering if on the southern side of that new purple line, if it could be expanded a little bit further to include Oak Avenue. You do have some facilities there, such as the Commodore Hall Apartments, the former Commodore Hall School. And there's some residential area in there that might offer an opportunity to be included in that concept of expanding the CBD zone. And similarly, the southern border, or I guess it'd be the eastern border of that purple line near where Video 7 is, there's some property over in that area that might lend an opportunity for meeting the goals of expanding the CBD zone. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Rossetti, you want to address about the points?
It died.
Okay, from memory, the first comment was on the moratorium. Many of those units were built prior to 1990. So the points that we have accrued since then would count, but the total number that we have existing, we don't qualify for one yet. The point about which units in town are on our record with the state, I did receive some Excel sheets recently. And different agencies collect different types of affordable units. We are starting to go through those, figure out which ones are being counted, which ones are not. We have already found that there are some units that are not being counted that have deed restrictions. So we will be working on updating those. I don't have an answer for you off the top of my head about the one on
The views along
Long Hill. That was brought up a couple months ago.
It was.
Yeah, I did all the research on
Yeah.
that, so I know it's age restricted.
So what we are doing, as I was looking at them earlier, was going through what the state has and combing through our deeds to make sure that they coincide, and I will rely on all of your local knowledge. And Tom had another conversation with you later to, I wasn't around for all of this, to make sure that we picked up on all the projects that the city worked to get those on the records. So we will be cross-examining those. And the last bit was the central business district. What's on the plan is a rough guide of where we plan on going with this. That will be a text change and a zone change that will require hearings, professionally drawn maps. That will have to go through its whole process. The commission has already discussed about expanding that central business district further south from the Route 8 Expressway down towards Oak Ave, or I guess east, whichever way, and then further south towards Center Street and towards Bridgeport Avenue. So that will be brought up again. This is just a starting point for us to say, here's where we want to expand it.
Okay.
So I think with the age restricted, we have to clarify with whoever, whether it's like a lot of these they're associations, the views of Long Hill are condominiums that are sold. Their bylaws state that someone over 55 has to live in the unit. So it can't be occupied by a family with young children, with nobody over the age of 55. I'm not positive because I was not able to find the actual deed for the land itself. And it may be the same thing with Wellspring. Would the state accept just the fact that the bylaws of the organization? Because if not, then maybe we need to reach out to the boards of these associations and ask them to, since it's already that their intent, to ask them to deed restrict it,
Mhm.
because that's a lot of units.
Sure is.
Any that we have that we've already done the work for, that we're not getting credit for, that's the low hanging fruit.
Right. But they might have been built before 1990, does that matter?
It does for points, it doesn't for our housing inventory stock.
And stock is what gets us to the quota?
Stock gets us to the 10%.
Okay.
By based off of points since 1990, then you can
Get the moratorium.
correct.
Okay, got it.
Confusing enough?
Yep, I'll vary.
Tom?
Okay, Mr. Harbinson, does that answer your questions?
Yes, it does. I had one more item just to clarify for Alex, kind of a technical nature. As I understand it, the affordable housing plan then becomes part of our plan of conservation and development. And those are normally required to be updated every 10 years. But I seem to see that the housing plan as a component of your plan of conservation development, it individually has to be updated every 5 years. And since these were due to be done by all municipalities in the state of Connecticut in 2022, a number of other municipalities didn't have them done in time. Our ticker or time clock starts in 2022. So basically about 4 years from now, we will have to revise this plan. And for Commissioner Harger's benefit, last night at the Board of Aldermen, they approved to have a public hearing on this on May 4th. And I believe you have to have it publicized 35 days before you have a public hearing. So they are under the wire for that.
Mhm. Absolutely. Okay. All right, so any further comments, questions, or concerns from the commission or Mr. Panico?
Not at this time. No, I have a couple of technical questions that I'll talk to Alex about.
Okay. All right, is there a motion then to approve the affordable housing plan as amended and submitted to the Board of Aldermen for a review? And the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion from Commissioner Parkins. Is there a second?
This wasn't a public hearing.
I'll second.
Commissioner Amato has second. So on the motion from Commissioner Parkins, seconded by Commissioner Amato, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Laskos,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Amato,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly, and chair votes aye. All right, thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is a public hearing on the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission to extend the present one-year moratorium on the acceptance of applications, the use of land or built structures or related activity for a cannabis establishment for 1 year. This was discussed at our February 8th meeting, and the commission voted unanimously to extend the moratorium for a year and to set a public hearing. Mr. Rossetti, any additional comments from the public that we need to acknowledge for the record? Okay, can I have the sign sheet, please?
Jenny, I didn't sign in, but I want to speak.
Okay, we will start with those in the auditorium and we will start with our elected officials. Mr. McPherson? That's the cannabis. No, this is cannabis. This is, yeah, that's what it is. This is cannabis.
Oh, I thought this was the,
No, you said.
Did I jump around? No.
No, this is
No, we're on D, cannabis.
C.
Okay,
oh, okay.
all right, so, Mr. McPherson, you have the floor.
She said the other one.
C. C is cannabis.
Yeah.
I'm here to also support your commission's recommendation to extend the moratorium. I think it's a wise decision. And if and when an application should surface, I will also be here to strongly oppose any establishment within the city of Shelton boundaries. I think our leaders in the state, those running the state, have saw a different shade of green called tax revenue.
Mr. McPherson, I don't want to be rude,
Yeah.
but you need to address your comments to just the extension of the moratorium,
Well, I am
okay?
in support of that, but I will be here to personally oppose whenever one comes in. But
Okay.
I agree with your decision.
Thank you so much. Next, Ms. Belamacy?
Hey, everybody, Chris Macy. I also support your expansion, extending the moratorium, and I'll refrain from commenting on my opposition until you have your next hearing. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Sharon Herman.
My name is Sharon Herman. I'm a Shelton homeowner residing at 170 River Road for 25 years. I have never consumed cannabis, neither before nor after its legalization. While many people speak of benefits from cannabis, sometimes they are speaking of CBD. While most people are aware that CBD has always been legal because it contains no mind-altering THC, supporters of cannabis do not always make this crucial distinction. I understand a city wants its residents to be happy and prosper. If Shelton were to add a cannabis dispensary, it would not make me personally happy, nor do I believe it would contribute to any prosperity. While some adults may perhaps consume cannabis responsibly, there is significant data demonstrating for others a direct correlation between cannabis use and mental health, substance abuse, driving while high, violence, and crime. While cannabis dispensaries are regulated to prevent minors from obtaining cannabis, the mere existence of a dispensary would pose an increased risk to our youth. Since cannabis dispensaries are restricted to one per population of 25,000, Shelton would only be allowed to have one dispensary. Shelton is such a desired destination for businesses and residents as we currently are. The addition of one dispensary in our city would have no effect on economic improvement. The only thing adding a dispensary would contribute would be a loss of time and money to approve, set up, and regulate. Shelton does not have time to spare on such an endeavor. I do not like to compare cannabis to alcohol as they are two separate substances with their own lists of pros and cons. However, I will compare the two substances to illustrate that while many adults want to have liquor stores in their community, property owners rarely want one in their own backyard. The same holds true for cannabis. It is pointless to go through such a time-consuming process to approve a cannabis dispensary, only to further argue and debate on where one would be placed. 14 cities have banned cannabis dispensaries from entering their municipalities. Bethel, Basra, Clinton, Darien, Deep River, Eastford, Groton, Kent, Lebanon, Milford, Monroe, Ridgefield, Waterford, and Westport have all banned cannabis dispensaries. Only 9 municipalities have opened cannabis dispensaries in their cities. The 3% tax Shelton would obtain from one dispensary is negligible. 17% of the tax would go to the state. Many other issues arise. It is projected that the recreational use demand will supersede the medical use demand, causing those who need medical cannabis to be delayed. Proponents claim the dispensary would likely be placed out of the way. That would therefore make it counterproductive. As of July 1st, all property owners in the state of Connecticut will be permitted to grow 3 cannabis plants on their property. All Connecticut residents are permitted to order cannabis online. A dispensary on top of all this is excessive. Proponents of a dispensary point out the amount a person can purchase will be regulated. First, the regulation is only per transaction, not per person per day. The limit per transaction is high, the equivalent of 7 joints or 4 vape cartridges. Assuming the dispensary will even follow the regulations is another issue. Less than a year ago, 7 Shelton businesses were cited for selling tobacco to minors, including 3 on Howe Avenue, 3 on Bridgeport Avenue, and 1 on River Road. If not having a dispensary saved 1 child or 1 person from a lifetime of addiction, a dispensary is worth banning. A cannabis dispensary is a colossal waste of time to prepare for, let alone regulate. It is not wanted by an increasingly large number of constituents. Our message is loud and clear, not in our backyard. Large cities such as New Haven have cannabis dispensaries. Shelton does not align with large cities like New Haven. Shelton aligns with the 14 prosperous, above-mentioned municipalities who have banned cannabis dispensaries. I implore and request that you ban a cannabis dispensary in Shelton. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Walter Dunn.
That's me.
Line up.
Good evening, everybody.
Go up to the microphone, sir.
I'm getting there. I don't move as fast as they once did. I'm sorry. There I am. My name is Walter Dunn. I live at 836 South Main Street in Beacon Falls. I lived in Shelton for 10 years, did business for 20 years in Shelton. I have a soon to be 16-year-old daughter in Shelton in high school. So I have an interest in the city. And I want to thank you all for your service. I respect that a lot. I do. Now, I'm against the establishment of any business in Shelton that's going to engage or could engage essentially in the sale of cannabis. And for what I'm about to say, I'm going to define cannabis sales as anything that has a percentage level in it greater than 0.3% THC. I mean, and that's what the feds go by. And I'm gonna say this much, that a lot of what I might say right now, and that's in a couple minutes, could be wrong, but it also could be right. I did my research and I have a pretty good knowledge on this, but I'm not going to guarantee absolute accuracy on everything I'm about to say. But to the best of my knowledge, it is correct. So I'll start off by saying this, that let's just say hypothetically, that I or somebody wanted to put a gun range in Shelton, or they wanted to put a topless bar in Shelton, or a speakeasy, whatever that really means, or let's say a 1%er motorcycle club, a big clubhouse and all that. And the FBI actually says that some of these places are they're on the gang list, they're considered gangs from the FBI, and things like that. And it probably wouldn't happen. Maybe it wouldn't happen. Probably wouldn't. But all of these things are, to my knowledge, legal according to federal law. It's just what could happen in these places and how somebody would run it, or how it would be gone about. That could break it.
Mr. Dunn, but what comments do you want to present to us that speak to the issue as to whether or not we should extend the moratorium?
Oh, I'm getting
That's the topic, okay?
Yeah, I'm not too clear on exactly.
We have an existing moratorium that is going to be expiring, and the topic is whether or not the commission should vote to extend that moratorium.
All right, well, I'm getting to that.
All right, move along.
I have 5 minutes, right?
No.
Well,
You're getting close.
I'm just asking. Whatever I have, right?
Yeah,
Start
but
five,
you're
right?
down to like about 3.5.
Yeah. So what I'm saying here is that, according to federal law, any of these things could be, they're legal, to my knowledge. Marijuana is not legal according to federal law. It is a controlled substance. It is illegal to possess it according to federal law. It is illegal to consume it, to dispense it, to transport it. If the city of Shelton accepts marijuana sales, again, as I defined it, it is going to be in violation of federal law. You cannot bring marijuana on an airplane. It is a capital offense in large scale drug trafficking according to federal law. It is a capital offense. And why would we, as a community, facilitate the commission of federal crimes, which is the sale of marijuana
This is almost over.
in Shelton? In 2 states, Florida and Louisiana, they're considered capital crimes punishable by death, large-scale drug dealing, including the dealing with marijuana.
Okay, Mr. Dunn, yes or no? Just answer the question. Are you for the commission continuing the extension of the moratorium, or are you not? That's what we're looking to find out.
Oh. Well, I'm for this moratorium. In other words, for no longer. Can you define the word moratorium, please?
It's a
For real, I'm
pause.
serious. I'm dead serious. I couldn't be-
Pause.
Pardon?
It's a pause, okay?
A pause.
Now I've answered the question, please answer, because otherwise I'm gonna ask you to take your seat, because we do have other people that have signed up to speak. Okay,
Do you want me to answer the question? Yeah, I am for this moratorium,
okay,
okay?
all right. Okay, thank you. All right, next
No
is,
more, I can't speak anymore. I have 5 minutes.
you were over 5 minutes, sir.
I am, really?
Yes. Okay, next is Glenn Swanson. Is Mr. Swanson here? Okay, next is David Eldridge. Is Mr. Eldridge here?
Signed up on the wrong sheet.
That's, oh, these were the people that. were
Yeah,
on the
those are the
sheet.
people that signed up on the
Okay,
wrong sheet.
Mr. Rossetti, is there anybody participating remotely that indicates they want to comment on this application or this discussion?
No.
Okay. Okay, so what is the consensus of the commission? Are you ready to move forward on this particular?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So as it appears that the commission is prepared to move forward on this recommendation, I'd like to recognize Attorney Teodoso, who has a resolution prepared.
Did you all see the resolution or did you read the entire resolution?
Do you have it online?
I'll read it for you.
Yeah, Mr. Rossetti's gonna bring it up too.
I've not seen it.
Okay. This is a resolution entitled Extension of Moratorium, and it's referenced cannabis establishment. It goes on that whereas on March, or let's say during March of 2022, the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission amended its zoning regulations to temporarily place a moratorium on all applications for and approvals of cannabis establishment. Whereas the text of that amendment is here to attach to Schedule A and is herein incorporated in its entirety. And whereas since the adoption and passage of that amendment, the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission has through its subcommittees convened meetings to study, analyze, and address all of said concerns occasioned by the approval of cannabis establishments. And whereas the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission has not yet completed its task of determining how best and most appropriate to amend its regulations to address such concerns. Whereas the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission is cognizant that swift action to conclude its task is in the best interest of the public. Now therefore be it resolved that the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission hereby declares an extension of its moratorium on all applications for and approvals of cannabis establishments to further review the effect of such a use. No applications will be accepted or heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and no approvals will be given by the Planning and Zoning Commission for cannabis establishments during this period. This extension and change in regulations shall apply to sections 5 and 23, which are attached here too and here incorporated. This is effective upon adoption and publication. The only thing I don't have in here, and I defer to the commission to decide, is how long are you extending the moratorium?
It was a recommendation for 1 year.
All right, so are we going to say until March 31st of 2024? Is that what you're saying?
I believe so. Yeah.
And I will recite that this moratorium expires March 31st, 2024. And if I did 20%, I'm 30.
March 31st, 2024. Continue also, are you going to talk about the Schedule A?
I could recite the Schedule A for you if you want, but the Schedule A that is attached is essentially the text of the passage of the moratorium back in March of 2022. I attached it and incorporated it by reference. If you want me to recite it, I will as part of your motion.
Are you good? No, it's the same. Okay, it's from last year. Okay, is there anything else, any explanation, any other comments you want to share with us?
just the comments that I have previously made, this type of, if you will, change in zoning regulation on a temporary basis is allowed until you can get substantive, if you will, review of your materials and make an informed decision, but it's not something that can go on indefinitely.
Okay, any questions for Attorney Diosa?
Now I'll make a motion to accept the resolution.
Okay, there's motion from Commissioner Parkins and a second from Commissioner Kelly. And that would be to move the resolution?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll do a roll call vote.
Do you want to ask the discussion? Any discussion?
Any discussion, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Gotta ask.
Okay, so Commissioner Kelly. Commissioner Parkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki.
Aye.
Commissioner Motto.
Aye.
Commissioner Lascos.
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Motion is passed by vote of 6-0. Okay, the final item on the agenda is the recommendation of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission to extend the present one-year citywide moratorium with the exception of the Central Business District on the acceptance, review, and approval of high-density residential rental housing. This was discussed at our March 15th meeting, and the commission voted unanimously to extend the moratorium for 6 months and to set a public hearing. Is there anybody in the front?
No, on the center.
Okay.
That's a maximum of 6 months.
Maximum 6 months, okay. That's a,
Max.
for a maximum of 6 months. Thank you. Okay, so there's no one here in the auditorium that has indicated that they would want to speak on the extension of this moratorium for the high rent density residential rental housing. Mr. Rossetti, is there anybody on line?
Two hands up.
First up is
I can't hear you.
First up is Don.
Okay, Attorney Thomas?
Yes, thank you very much. Dominic Thomas, Cohen and Thomas, 315 Main Street, Derby, Connecticut. I will be repeating some of the stuff I did back in June when you did it. You do not need to extend the moratorium. Your high-density housing, high-density rental housing, and I you maybe answered one of my questions, but the high-density rental housing can only be done by a planned development district. So anybody that wants to do a high-density development has to do a zone change, which gives you full legislative approval. I will say that I have a project that I have submitted a draft plan to the to your staff, asking for a work session to discuss. That's part of a commercial project that's going to insert apartments into it. This is something that is tied to their financing as it goes forward. They will have no alternative, and I know somebody's going to sit there and say, here he is threatening again, but they have no alternative but to change it, redesign it, increase the density, and go 8-30G. And I think what you're doing is you're forcing, if you're anybody that's contemplating going forward, that's what you're forcing to happen. Now, there are projects that will be beneficial, filed as an 8-30G, but they can't be just peremptorily denied. They have to be listened to and considered, and but you're forcing that, and that was discussed by some of the members as with the commission. You are in a time period where other people that want to go forward. I have this one project, and I didn't want to be confronted with a situation, somebody telling me later, well, you should have mentioned it to us. Well, I've been working to I've been asking to have a work session about it. But there's no reason to have a moratorium, none. I don't know what was done in the last 9 months. Your plan was very good, and your plan was the equivalent of having your subcommittee look at what you want going forward. You've established how you want non 8-30Gs to approach affordable housing. You've established an exchange that can take place concerning the amount of affordable housing. So there's absolutely no basis whatsoever for you to go forward with an additional 6 months. In addition to that, part of your housing plan and part of the requirement to do the housing plan is to increase housing stock. You are doing the exact opposite. You are now creating a situation where, there will be projects that will be delayed, maybe put off. In addition to that, the time frame when you increase it, you are then inadvertently, or no, vertently, not inadvertently, advertently, you are now causing increases because of the existing supply shortage. You are causing increases in rents, which is directly contradictory. So what you should be doing in your affordable housing plan. But the bottom line is there's no need for you to do it because you have the full legislative control when people come in with a voluntary. And I think you run the risk of then telling those people that are contemplating coming forward with projects to simply increase your density and come in under 8-30G. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Thomas. Mr. Rossetti, anybody else?
Tom Harbinson, 15 Stonecrest Drive. I just wanted to understand, what is the definition of high density residential rental housing? What falls under that category? Thank you.
Mr. Rossetti?
Would a condo development fall under that category? Or does it really kind of refer to multifamily, or what is a high density residential rental housing situation?
First of all, this is a rental component. It's not like a condo.
Condominiums tend to be ownership, not rentals.
Mr. Rossetti, do we have that definition for high density?
Our book, our plan?
There's
Anything that above 4 family or 4 unit building in our zoning regulations.
zoning regs say it's 5 units or more then. Okay,
But this excludes the downtown district.
except in the downtown district. Okay,
Very well. Thank you very much.
thank you. Anybody else, Mr. Rossetti?
No.
Okay. Okay, any comments from the commission?
Well, just in regards to Attorney Thomas's comments, this 6-month moratorium doesn't include us going forward with ending that sooner. Makes sense.
Correct.
Secondly, we wanted to make sure we have the affordable housing plan in place, which would designate what we were expecting in terms of affordable units in the in the other areas in town if they come forward with a
And you won't
plan.
have that until we all have it approved.
Which their public hearing is scheduled for May 4th, so
Right.
it's not too far in the distant future.
Right.
So that plan could technically be adopted midnight.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Yes, we talked about when we discussed this last month, my hope would be that it is less than the 6 months. We tend to run our moratoriums to the full allotment, and this would take us to the end of September. So I'm hopeful that now that we've passed the affordable housing and the Alderman will take their action, that we can be less than the 6 months that we've set out for. Because having the moratorium isn't of value if we're not kind of planning for it while we're having that moratorium, so that we get ourselves together and then we know when this lifts that we're prepared to then take applications for high density residential again.
I agree. I thought we have to do it right.
We have to do it right, and we can't keep running out the clock and then extending the clock. So now with the Aldermen having their vote next month, they'll vote on the affordable housing plan. That means that we'll have an approved plan for the city, and then we can look at if we're in a place where we could then lift this moratorium, since it's a maximum of 6 months, we don't have to run out the clock to the full allotment until September 30th.
Right, that point's been made.
Yeah.
We all have all agreed to that.
Yeah, we had that as a maximum of no more than. Okay, Mr. Panico, did you have any comments?
No, I think you've touched on the important points.
Okay. All right, it appears that the commission is ready to move forward on this. I'll recognize Attorney Teodoso to read the resolution that he's prepared.
Before I do, just one comment on the comments that you all made. If you do decide to shorten the extension that you seem about to vote on, you still have to go through the process that we're going through right now. You'd have to notice a public hearing, then change the regulation to shut it down
Okay.
more quickly. But I would also encourage you to.
I thought we didn't have to have a hearing to end it sooner.
How are you going to end it without passing?
Yeah.
This is a zoning change,
Right.
zoning regulation change, and to terminate it would be another zoning regulation change.
Well, we have to
So,
Adopt
Yeah.
some.
yeah, okay. Okay,
And I just, I actually agree with you, the affordable housing plan that you just sent over to the Board of Aldermen. If you need any help with regard to any changes that you want to effectuate in any of the zoning regulations that apply to high density, it's the perfect time to do it. And I offer my services. All right, this is going to seem like a little bit of a rerun because of the previous motion that I read, but this is an extension of the moratorium for multifamily high-density residential rental housing units. Whereas on or about May of 2022, the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission amended its zoning regulations to temporarily place a moratorium on all applications for approvals of any high-density multifamily residential rental units in all areas of Shelton, excepting the downtown Shelton Central Business District. Whereas the text of that amendment here to attach is Schedule A and is here incorporated in its entirety. Whereas since the adoption and passage of that amendment, the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission has, through its subcommittees, convened meetings to study, analyze, and address all of said concerns occasioned by the construction of high-density multifamily housing. Whereas the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission has not yet completed its task of determining how best and most appropriate to amend its regulations to address such concerns. Whereas the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission is cognizant that swift action to conclude its task is in the best interest of the public. Now therefore be it resolved that the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission, accepting the Central Business District, hereby declares an extension of its moratorium on all applications for and approval of any high-density multifamily residential rental units to determine the additional need of this type of housing in the city. This includes the utilization of planned development districts to propose a district which would have high-density multifamily residential rental units. No applications will be accepted or heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and no approvals will be given by the Planning and Zoning Commission for high-density multifamily residential rental units during this period. Notwithstanding the foregoing extension of this moratorium, the extension shall not apply to any high-density multifamily residential rental housing proposals made for the Central Business District. This extension and change in the regulations shall apply to sections 21, 22, 23, 24, 31, 33, 34, and 35 of the Shelton zoning regulations, effective upon adoption and publication. This moratorium expires September 30th. Is that what you were saying? You were saying 2022.
and then,
The same thing as the schedule, and that's the action you took last time.
okay. All right, any discussion? Is there a commissioner who would like to move the resolution?
I had a question for Corporation
Sir.
Council. A question
go
for
ahead.
Corporation Council. If we establish a expiration date of September 30 of 2023, and the commission has completed its work 3 months prior to that, can they terminate the moratorium without having to consider it at a public hearing?
No.
Is this resolution going to mandate that it be in effect until September 30th?
I didn't hear your last part, Tony.
Is it gonna
Does-
mandate the
No.
effect?
No, you could you could amend your zoning regulations tomorrow to shut this down next week if you want.
Did you hear that, Tony?
Yeah,
I mean,
just to make sure that there's no confusion, can we simply change that expiration date not later than September 30th, 2023?
you can do that if you like, if it makes you feel more comfortable, but be the devil's advocate, you could even extend it to a different day with another modification of the zoning regulation. You're modifying the zoning regulation, you're changing.
Well, they're not, but supposing they don't modify the zoning regulations,
I'm sorry?
why would they have to modify the zoning regulations unless they have provisions for change?
I'm not understanding your question there. The moratorium goes into place on the premise that it's just like a zoning regulation that is put in effect temporarily.
No, the moratorium is simply to prevent this commission from accepting and processing applications.
Right, but it's a zoning regulation. That's how you do it.
We haven't changed anything in the past. A year ago, we didn't change anything. Not to my recollection. Am I incorrect?
We did the same thing we just did now back in May.
Last May.
So would it have automatically expired without having another public hearing to shut it down?
Yeah.
It would have automatically expired. So if we meet the date, the end date that we set, if we meet that, we don't need a public hearing to
Right.
shut it down,
Right.
to change what we changed, didn't
Because it
change to
just-
begin
it
with.
just ends. It's like.
No,
it's
my question was, what if the commission determines after 60 days that they've done everything they want to do and they're ready to accept applications?
You have a 5-minute public hearing and you have a motion that essentially.
Okay, so you do have to have a public hearing then.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was a little confused on that. I thought we didn't have to have it.
well, that's why I'm just wondering if we put a word in expired not later than, does that open up the door for us to terminate it sooner without a hearing?
You can have it here.
I think you should have a 5-minute hearing that says we want to revoke this and then put the motion to the floor. That's my advice.
Okay.
So we'll just have to be mindful of the dates that allow us time to have that public hearing in order to shut it down when we want it to shut down and not have it delayed.
Right.
As soon as the commission feels that they're ready, they can have that public hearing.
Right, we will.
There's no, they could schedule a public hearing tonight. It's changed it.
No,
Okay.
it's not.
We're not quite ready.
It's a special meeting and we can't add anything to the agenda. Okay, so any other discussion? All right, is there someone who would like to move the resolution? Commissioner Kelly is going to move the resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Laskos was second. So on the motion made by Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Laskos. I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Amato. Aye. Commissioner Tiki.
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos.
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly. Commissioner Parkins.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Motion is passed by a vote of 6-0. All right, seeing that there is no other item on the agenda, the chair declares this evening's meeting is adjourned as of 9:06 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Aye.